Chapter 1, Manifestation. Chapter Text. Resources are the most precious thing on the planet. Wars have been waged for that very thing. Resources. Murders, theft. Someone has a resource or something you want, they come to try and take it. But there is one resource that can't be fought over: time. Time is finite yet infinite. People are given a limited amount in an unknown quantity when they are born. They talk of how precious it is and then squander it because they believe there is more tomorrow, even if they don't know if that is true. Time is the one thing people cling to desperately, but also toss aside as if it is not worth holding on to. You spend time never earning it. Izuku Midoriya is 4 years old, waiting for his quirk to manifest, wasting his time dreaming of what it could be and how he can be a hero with it. What passes for a friend, Katsuki Bakugo has already manifested his quirk, Explosion. Now, it is just a matter of time for Izuku's quirk. Today, though, will be a tremendous day that he will never forget, moments that may be lost to time for others, but not for him. Visiting the quirk doctor. He was picked up in the afternoon to see the quirk doctor because he had headaches and blurred vision. His mother, Inko, drives her son, listening to him ramble about the latest hero debut or some hero activity he saw online. When he teases him, whoever just debuted will challenge his favorite hero, All Might, for the #1 spot. Izuku would roll his eyes and tell her mom that no one could ever do that because All Might is the best of all time. They get checked in as Izuku walks over to the toy area, where another girl is playing with a toy car, running it along the mat. He notices she has bandages on various joints and is missing a hand. When he walks over, she smiles at him and says, "Hello." She has green hair and eyes like him, but hers are dark green and her teeth are pointy. She was wearing a dinosaur shirt that had a T-Rex with its arms out, and it said, "I like you this much." Izuku thought her shirt was funny. "Hello," he replies, fetching another car from the bucket to play alongside her. "What happened to your hand?" "Oh, it fell off," she says as casually as the sun is in the sky. "Whoa, are you okay?" he says, looking at her concerned. "Yeah, it happens. It is because of my quirk. I can make parts of me float around, but I am not very good at it. So I was showing my friend, floating my hand around, and bam, it fell down the drain, and I lost it," she said. "That would scare me," he said, looking at her. She smiled. "The first time it happened was my foot. I cried for like 2 hours. But then we came and saw the doctor and found out it would grow back. I had to hop around for a while. It was fun. I have to get a shot today to help grow a new hand. I don't like shots, though," she said, scotting her car closer to his. "Why are you here?" "I get headaches and blur my eyes. I think it's my quirk," he said with a grin. "I hope it's a cool one. You seem nice." She smiled, bumping his car with hers. "If you are cool, can you answer this one question?" Izuku nodded. After all, he wanted to be cool. "What is your favorite dinosaur?" he noticed as she asked. She was shaking her shirt at him. "The T-Rex," he said, giggling. "That's right. I knew you were cool. What is your name, cool kid?" she said. "Izuku Midoriya." "What is yours?" he replied, bumping her car with his. "Setsuna Tokage, but I let cool kids call me Set." Before they could continue their little banter, the nurse came out and called Setsuna's name to go back. "Will you put my car away?" Izuku nodded as the girl went to her mother, and they left the waiting room. Izuku played with both cars for a minute before his name was called. He quickly ran over and put the cars away before taking his mother's hand so they could be led back. Inko was directed to the doctor's office, and Izuku was led into a testing room. Inko sat patiently texting her husband, a little irritated at the lack of response. She knew he was home. When the door opened about an hour later, Izuku skipped in, followed shortly by the doctor, who looked like he had seen a ghost. Dr. Tsubasa takes a seat, folding his hands before he speaks. "Mrs. Midoriya, your son has a quirk. His quirk factor is incredibly high for one so young. From all the tests we ran, it seems to be shaping up to be an emitter type. This is the cause of the headaches and blurry vision. Once his quirk manifests, these symptoms should subside. As I read his file, I saw that you have a minor telekinesis quirk and his father can breathe fire," he said. Izuku smiled as the doctor's mustache twitched. Izuku found the doctor's bushy mustache kind of silly. "That is correct, doctor," she said. "Is something wrong?" Or is there something I should be on the lookout for? Mrs. Midoriya, it was his quirk factor. It tested nearly off the charts. I am unsure what he will manifest, but it will be extremely strong. I recommend that you consider transferring Izuku to a different school with things in place to handle these things should they manifest at school, he said, handing her a pamphlet. Also, the school has faculty that can help teach him how to control it best after it manifests. They specialize in helping kids with quirks that are difficult to control. But he wouldn't know anyone and the cost, she said, looking over the pamphlet. The school looked very nice, but the young lady your son was playing with in the waiting room attends that school, and they offer financial aid and scholarship possibilities. With his quirk factor, he would qualify for immediate enrollment. You should go home and talk it over with your husband, the doctor said. Inko nodded, bowing before she left with Izuku in tow. Home. The journey home had Izuku talking more about his future quirk. He was bouncing at the excitement. He hoped his quirk allowed him to control fire, a mixture of his parents. Inko smiled and told him that whatever his quirk was, she would be proud of him because her son would be next #1. Izuku smiled and started talking about teaming up with All Might and how they could work together. They pulled up to their apartment building. Inko frowned as she still hadn't heard from Hisashi. Walking up the stairs to the apartment, she opened the door. It was eerily quiet. Inko noticed that Hisashi's shoes were not by the door. As she went into the house, she noticed that some pictures were missing from the wall, and sitting on the counter was a manila envelope, his ring, and a letter. Trembling, she walked over to the letter and opened it. Inko, I have fallen in love with another woman. In the envelope are divorce papers. I feel they are rather generous. Tell Izuku whatever you want. I don't want anything to do with him or you. Hisashi. Inko started crying, and Izuku ran over. Mom, are you okay? Did something happen to Dad? Inko quickly squashed her tears. Yes, baby, everything is fine. Your dad got called to America for work suddenly. He will be gone for a while, that's all. Okay, Izuku said. Can I go play in my room? Inko just nodded as Izuku walked down the hall. She called after him. Mommy is going to nap for a little bit, okay? Izuku nodded and disappeared into his room. Inko stumbled down the hall to her room. She closed and locked the door before collapsing on the bed, crying into her pillow to muffle the sound. The day at the park. The next day, Inko did her best to keep up the mask with Izuku. Fortunately, when he wanted to go to the park, it worked out in her favor as her lawyer was near there so he could review the paperwork. She dropped him off and did her best to smile as he spotted some children from school and ran off excitedly. Izuku spotted Katsuki and ran over to tell him the good news. He wasn't alone, as is usually the case. He was with Tsubasa, a portly boy with red dragon wings, and Ueo, a very skinny boy whose skin stretched to vast levels. When he came running up, he was all smiles. The other boy scowled while Katsuki stood up and placed his hand on his hips like his favorite hero, All Might. Well, Deku, you find out your quirk? He sneered. Or maybe he was smiling. It was hard to tell sometimes with Katsuki. No, Izuku said. He could already hear the snickers from Tsubasa and Ueo. But the doctor said my quirk levels are super high. He said that means my quirk is going to be really strong and it is an emitter type and that it's the reason for my headaches and stuff. That's fine, I guess, Katsuki said. Well, you better figure it out fast. He pointed his finger at him. No sidekick of mine better have some lame quirk. Now let's play. The kids immediately broke into a play of heroes and villains. Izuku got cast as a villain, but that was normal, as he didn't have a quirk. The other kids were slightly meaner to him, but they still allowed him to play, and for now, that was good enough. After about an hour, he had to take a little break due to a headache, but once that was done, a great expedition was laid out to the forest. Katsuki, in the lead, of course, led them into the forest, searching for the lost treasure of All Might. The kids were marching along, having fun, when they came across a small ravine with a river at the bottom. Our intrepid explorers attempted to figure out a way past it when Tsubasa spotted a log forming a bridge. The kids ran over, and it all seemed perfectly fine to them. Tsubasa grinned and flew to the other side. Ueo volunteered to go first. The boy gulped and walked across quickly. He said it was a little slippery. Katsuki puffed out his chest and declared that he was next, and with his stick held high, he marched across. As he was walking and talking some nonsense, he suddenly lost his footing and began to fall. All three boys reached out to try and catch their leader, but that was when it happened. Izuku had visions of Katsuki falling to his death. Now, there was a chance he would injure himself, but death was not likely but to a 4-year-old. No, I am not going to make it, Izuku thought. As he dashed forward, he heard a pop and felt a flood of something ripple throughout his body, starting at his head. He winced from the sensation, and when he opened his eyes, everything was stopped. Everything, nothing was moving. Izuku looked around. Katsuki was frozen, about to fall off the log. A bird overhead wasn't moving. He reached down, picked up a rock, and tossed it. It didn't move once it left his hand. He could move the rock with his hand. This is my quirk. He was about to jump for joy when he realized Katsuki was still falling. Carefully, he walked over and was able to pull and move Katsuki. It was difficult. It seemed that Katsuki still weighed the same, and Izuku was 4, but he pulled him back to the side of the ravine. He was starting to feel cold. Izuku stopped and concentrated on the cold, trying to think about it stopping, but nothing happened. He imagined the cold being pushed out of his body, released, and everything started moving again. As the rock flies, the bird moves, and Katsuki topples over on the grass. Izuku was jumping around like a madman, pumping his fist. In the corner of his eye, a number appeared, 108. Katsuki was lying in the grass. He had lost his footing and was about to fall off the log when suddenly he fell onto the grass, and Deku was jumping around like an idiot. What the hell? My quirk! It was my quirk. My quirk came in. Izuku yelled. I saved you from falling into the river. I did it. I got my quirk. Izuku, out of breath shivering, collapsed on the grass, smiling like an idiot. Katsuki's eye twitched at Deku, claiming he saved him, but something had happened. What happened, Deku? Izuku sat up and started to explain excitedly, but when they got to the actual part about the quirk, Katsuki's eyes got wide. You stop time, he yelled. Izuku just nodded his head vigorously. No way. Iwao yelled. Once the boys were back on the same side of the river, they demanded that he prove it. Izuku thought hard. Then he snapped his fingers as he had an idea. The rock. He could move it, and when he threw it once time started, it went flying. Okay, look at the ravine. I will stop time and throw a bunch of rocks. When it starts, you are going to see them all fly. The other boys nodded. It took Izuku a moment to trigger it again, and when he did, he jumped around again before remembering what he was supposed to be doing. The cold started building again. He could feel the ache in his bones. He released it once he had thrown about 10 rocks. The boys stood there when rocks suddenly appeared before them and flew into the ravine. Their mouths were all agape as Izuku was standing there smiling, shivering. That is fucking awesome, Katsuki yelled. You will be the best sidekick ever. No, Izuku said smiling. I am going to be the best hero ever. Damn right, Katsuki said, grinning. King Explosion and whatever your name will be. The boys kept experimenting with Izuku's new quirk, but he could only do a few more before he was utterly exhausted and shaking from the cold. The boys touched him, and he was almost like ice. They decided that maybe it was best they stop for now. Smiling and laughing, they emerged from the forest. Izuku was finally part of the group now that he had such a quirk. It wasn't long before Inko returned, putting on her fake smile till she saw Izuku laughing and grinning. When her little man saw her, he almost knocked her off her feet. She could have sworn she blinked, and he was right there. When Izuku saw his mom, he sprang to his feet and wanted nothing more than to get to her. It happened again. But this time, when he started moving, it wasn't cold that he felt, but heat. Everything moved so fast that he ran over to her in a second. When he released the heat as he had done with the cold, he was in front of her, sweating slightly. Mom, my quirk came in. I can stop time, he said, jumping up and down before her. Inko was in shock. What did you say, sweetie? My quirk, I can stop time, he repeated like that explained everything. Izuku, calm down and start from the beginning, she said, holding her son's gaze. Izuku then told her the story of the log and ravine, how everything happened, and the few tests he did. He told me it happened again when he saw her, but this time, he felt hot, and moved way faster. Inko hugged him tight. That is wonderful, Izuku. I will call the doctor immediately. Now, let's get something to eat. You must be hungry. Inko wrapped her arm around her son. Truthfully, she was happy. Her son had manifested a powerful quirk, which scared her. If he could stop time. Doctor's office. Dr. Tsubasa was not expecting a call from Mrs. Midoriya the next day, but his eyes lit up when he took the call, and his mustache twitched. Yes, Mrs. Midoriya, bring him in right away. If what you say is true, then it is imperative that we see him as soon as possible. Yes, see you soon. He sat in the darkened room, his mind swirling with the possibilities and implications of whether this boy could stop time. His master would be so happy. He needed to tell him immediately. He quivered with anticipation. His fingers trembled as he dialed the number. My lord, the most extraordinary thing has fallen into our laps. I can hear the excitement in your voice, doctor. Please share this development with me. Morning visit. Inko had arranged for a visit first thing in the morning. Izuku devoured his food at lunch and ate a second helping at dinner. Mom, can I call Dad and tell him about my quirk? Inko thought about it. What was she going to say? She wanted to tell him the truth, but didn't want to ruin his day. Maybe tomorrow. He is asleep right now in America, she said. Her heart broke when he looked crestfallen, and she heard him mutter, okay. No practicing with your quirk tonight. We have an appointment with the doctor first thing in the morning, so I want you to rest so you can show them how amazing your quirk is. He immediately perked up. Okay, Mommy. Can we watch All Might Meets Godzilla tonight? That sounds great. Maybe this time Godzilla will win, she said. No way, All Might always wins, he said. As they sat down to watch the movie, the number in the corner of his vision was distracting. He didn't know what it meant. 108. Inko was sitting in the increasingly familiar doctor's office when the doctor entered minus Izuku, causing her panic a little. Is Izuku okay? She asked quickly. Yes, Mrs. Midoriya, he responded calmly. He is just warming up right now, but I will explain. You see, Mrs. Midoriya, your son can indeed stop time. When he does, he begins to get cold. It seems to be what will dictate the amount of time he can keep it stopped. It is tremendous. He can interact with objects and move around freely while time is stopped. He was able to keep it stopped for a whole 5 minutes. We discovered that anything on him is not affected by the time stoppage. He cannot stop time on an object, but that could develop as he practices with his quirk and gets stronger. The other interesting time is that he seems able to accelerate time on himself, giving him super speed. This is much more difficult for him, and this generates heat. Inko nodded, amazed at what the doctor was telling her. Mrs. Midoriya, I believe that your son, with his quirk factor, has the potential to be one of the greatest heroes of the future. What he is going to need is training. I have spoken to the principal of the Mirai Zayden, and he is willing to grant your son a full scholarship to attend. Inko sat back. I would like to tour the campus first and speak with the principal. Of course, I expected as much. He will see you as soon as you are done here. Izuku came into the room soon after, wrapped in a blanket. He smiled at his mom and snuggled in when she hugged him tight. She felt so warm. Mirai Zayden. The campus was beautiful, with perfectly manicured landscaping that gave it an air of sophistication. Security greeted them at the gate, and after she provided her ID, they were allowed entrance. When they came to the front of the main building, they were greeted by a beautiful blonde-haired woman with blue eyes. She bowed, introducing herself as Isuru Arashur. She was the personal secretary for the principal, and she was going to give them a tour as he was finishing up a meeting. Thank you for seeing us on such short notice, Inko said, bowing. Izuku followed his mother's lead and bowed. Think nothing of it, she said with a dazzling smile. You must be Izuku? Yes, ma'am, he said. Now, if you would be so kind as to follow me. She then took them on a tour of the main building, which was toured briefly, as it wasn't until Izuku entered high school that he would find himself here. Inko was surprised as the woman pointed out that the campus had everything from preschool to high school and boasted a 99.8 graduation rate and university admittance. They also had an excellent track record for preparing students to take the entrance exams for the hero schools. She walked them across campus to the preschool where Izuku would be attending should he join them. The building was very nice. and as the kids were at recess, Inko sent Izuku to play while she talked with the teacher. Izuku was looking around at all the kids when he spotted a head of familiar dark green hair. "Set," he called out. He was thrilled when she turned around. He waved at her, frantically running to her. "What are you doing here, cool kid?" she said. "My Quirk came in," he said, vibrating with excitement. "Really? That is super awesome. What is it?" she asked. "I can stop time." "What now, freaking way? That is so cool. That means you could have a recess for like forever," she said, a look of longing in her eyes. "Or art class," he said, his voice full of wonder. "Can you stop time for others?" she said hopefully. "No," he said, feeling like he let her down. "But the doctor says that with practice, maybe one day." "Then that's cool. Are you going to start coming to school here too?" "I think so. I was scared at first, but then I saw you, and I wouldn't be alone." He smiled at her as he said it. "That's right. I would be here for you," she said, returning his smile. "Now let's go play. I will introduce you to my friends so when you come here, you will have friends." "Okay," he bounded off after her. Mrs. Arisher led them to the principal's office. When she opened the door, a tall man was behind a large oak desk. The side of his brown hair was white, but he didn't appear to be very old when he stood up. He was over 6 feet tall and strode over to them with a smile. He looked to Mrs. Arisher. "10 minutes, sir," she said, backing out of the room. "Mrs. Midoriya, it is a pleasure to meet you. I am Rito Richado, the principal and founder of this academy." He bowed. "I am so sorry I couldn't greet you when you arrived, but thank you for taking the time to visit us today. And you must be Izuku?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for having us," he said, bowing. Inko was relieved. He remembered his manners. "Yes, Mr. Richado. Thank you for meeting with us. You must be very busy." "Think nothing of it. I am always busy. But once I heard of this young man, I had to take the time to meet you both. Let me be frank with you, Mrs. Midoriya," he said, gesturing towards a couch for them to sit. Once they did, he sat in a leather armchair. "The world of quirks is fantastic, with many people across the globe possessing many wonderful and amazing quirks. Time manipulation or anything to do with time is extraordinarily rare, with only Sir Night-Eye having a quirk tangentially related to time. The ability to stop time, though, never heard of. Nowhere in the world, to my knowledge. I want Izuku to attend this academy so we can help him become the great person his future holds for him. We can help offer guidance in understanding his quirk and learning what it does and how it works. We can also provide him with a proper education for whatever career he wishes to pursue." "What do you want to do, young man?" "I want to be a hero like All Might," he said proudly. "You can do just that with your quirk and proper guidance," the principal said, beaming. "We have 27 licensed quirk counselors to help in every way possible. He will also be surrounded by some of the best and brightest that Japan has to offer. As you know, I would like to offer him a full scholarship for however long he attends here. He need only maintain a B average. We would also like to offer a transportation allowance and a food stipend." "That sounds amazing, Mr. Richado, but why offer so much for a boy you have never met?" Inko said. "His quirk," the principal replied. "I hope that by him attending here as we watch his quirk grow and help him understand it, it will give us insight into time. Time is something that we know much about and also precious little. It will be a worthwhile investment if we can increase our understanding and knowledge of the subject by even 2%. This could lead us to interstellar travel or even a better understanding of our relationship with time. That is why I am making such a generous offer." "What if you learn nothing?" "Then we learn nothing, but we'll learn nothing if we don't take the opportunity," he said. "Please review my proposal, talk it over with your husband, and let us know if you have any questions." "What if he decides to enroll somewhere else after a few years?" she inquired. "Then he does," the principal shrugged. "I cannot fathom any other institute that can match what we offer, Mrs. Midoriya. But if all we have is a few years, then I hope we learn all we can in those few years. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. We will be in touch," she said, rising to her feet. Mrs. Arisher greeted them when they exited. She handed Inko a packet with the offer and walked them to the exit, where she wished them well before returning to Mr. Richado's office. "How did it go?" "Fine." She asked the proper questions, he said, gazing out the window. I am sure she will see reason and enroll him. And if she doesn't, then the doctor will grab him. We cannot allow that to happen. All for One only sees the quirk and whatever narrow-minded uses he can think of for the asinine game he plays. He doesn't see what we can gain from studying him and what he will owe us if we help him fulfill his dreams. Let All for One have the country. I will take the galaxy. Now, who is the next meeting with? He said. The Yaoyorozu. She responded, setting a file on his desk. Apparently, their daughter has quite the amazing quirk. Chapter 2. New School. Chapter Text. It wasn't hard saying goodbye to his classmates, but Kugo teased him about running away because he was so great. But there was no more teasing him about his lack of quirk, though he was tired and cold after school from having to demonstrate his new power. It is hard to convince 4-year-olds that you can stop time. It had been decided that Izuku would start school on Monday, giving him the whole weekend to prepare. Inko had sat down, read the proposal from the school, and even had her lawyer look it over, and she would be a fool to pass up the opportunity. The opportunities that Mirai Zayden offered were what every parent could want for their child, regardless of the field they would pursue. On the divorce paperwork, her lawyer had rejected what Hisase's legal counsel had sent over and was going to go after the man with the wrath of 1,000 sons. Mr. Kobayashi was also going to help facilitate the sale of the apartment and find a place closer to Izuku's new school, which would also put Inko closer to work. The food stipend would nicely cover the two of them, freeing up some money for a possible rent increase. She was surprised when a lovely apartment near the school came up. After she toured the facility, she discovered it was in place, especially for children attending Mirai Zayden Academy. The price was discounted as long as the student was enrolled in the academy. The amenities offered were excellent. Everything from swimming, tennis, workout center, school tutoring, 24-hour concierge, various social events, and even monthly excursions for the children to museums, theaters, and movies for a discounted rate. It was too good for her to pass up. With Hisashi gone and Izuku going to a new school, she had been scared of how all these changes would work out, but it was turning more into a dream. It was a lonely dream as she looked over at the side of the bed he would sleep on when he was home. He hadn't been home much since Izuku was born, but she soothed herself with the knowledge that he was working for their future. He had only been home for a few days before leaving the letter. He had made love to her every night. She just sat there feeling used, angry, lonely. It was just this overload of emotion. And then she had to keep lying to Izuku, who wanted to share the news with his dad. That would have to end. She decided it would be done on Saturday. She would take him out for the day before sitting him down to talk. The truth. Izuku was so excited when his mom asked if he wanted to go to the Hero Museum. A new exhibit about All Might's early years had opened, and he had been dying to go. It was a great day. They went to the museum. He even got a new souvenir, a limited edition All Might poster, and they went out to dinner at Heroes World. He had always wanted to eat there. All the staff would dress up as heroes, and the walls were flooded with all kinds of hero merch. On the way home, his mom took him on a walk around the park before they found their bench and took a seat. Inko looked down at her son, her eyes wet, and smiled before pulling him in tight. Izuku always loved his mom's hugs. They were the best, but this one felt different. He didn't know why. Izuku, baby, you know I love you more than anything, right? Yes, mommy, he said. I want you to know that I will never leave you, and that no matter what happens, I will be right here to support you. He just nodded, feeling a little scared as he could tell she was building up to something. Your dad has decided to leave us and is not returning. What do you mean? You said he was in America? His bottom lip quivering. This is going to be hard for you to understand right now, but your dad and I are getting a divorce. That means we won't be married anymore. But I will still be your mommy. Nothing will change that. Your dad has decided that he doesn't want to be with us anymore. Do you understand? She asked, keeping her tears at bay. He gave up? Izuku asked, a few tears running down his cheeks. Yes, baby, he gave up on us. She was losing her battle to keep her emotions under control. Why did he give up? Was it because of me? Did I not get my quirk fast enough? It's strong. Maybe he will return if we call him and tell him. I can be better. Tell me what I need to do. I can do it, I promise. His voice was breaking, tears just running down his face. Inko pulled him tight. Oh, baby, it is not your fault. You didn't do anything. This is all your father's fault. He chose to give up on us. Are you going to give up? He managed between sobs. No, baby, I will never give up on you. I will be with you forever, I promise, she said, as her tears could no longer be held back. It will be you and me forever, forever and ever. Izuku just cried, clinging to his mom. He wanted to talk to his dad and find out why he would give up on them. A fire began to burn. He would make him regret giving up on them. Izuku would become the top hero in Japan, even better than All Might, and make his father regret giving up on them. Make him watch from wherever he was as his son. No, as Iankeo's son became a legend right before his eyes. When the two finally were able to separate, he looked to his mom. I promise that I will never give up on you. I will be the greatest hero ever and make you proud. I promise I will take care of you, Mom. I am going to take care of you. We will take care of each other, baby, she said, kissing his forehead. And no matter what, it will be you and me against anyone who tries to stop us. It took a little bit before they were ready to head home. She noticed he paused, looking at the door. You don't like living here anymore, do you? No, he said, but it's okay, as long as I have you. He did his best to smile for her, which she warmly returned. We won't be living here much longer, she said. I started looking and found a great place close to your school and the hospital. So we are going to sell this place and get a whole new one just for you and me. He brightened at the thought. Do I need to start packing now? No, not yet, but we will soon, I promise. Now get inside and bathe while I hang up your new poster. Don't hang it up, he said. I want to wait till we are in the new house. Whatever you want, my Izuku, she told him fondly. Monday. He was very nervous as they drove up to the academy, his uniform, his All Might backpack, but it took a moment for him to get out of the car. He took Inko's hand as they walked up to the kindergarten entrance. After they were checked in, the duo was directed to the office, where Izuku was given a little ID of his own, placing it in a lanyard secured around his neck. The lovely lady then said, This is part of your uniform. Every day, you have to wear this. This is what they scan for your lunch and everything, okay? Izuku nodded. Inko knew it was more than that. The lanyard contained a chip that read while the children were on campus so they could be located at all times. It scanned them in the morning and out at the end of the day. If the sensors picked up someone without a badge, it would immediately set off the warning system. It might have been a bit extreme, but as the academy attracted children from the upper crusts of society and diplomats' children, the extra security was necessary. Not to mention the children with fantastic quirk potential like her son. Parents could even download an app to check where their kids were on campus. Inko noticed that the academy was very technical heavy. Still, it seemed to all be supplemented by a human presence providing any parent this invisible wall of security and peace of mind. They hugged as he went to join his class, and she walked back to her car. She sat there for a few minutes composing herself before heading to the hospital for her shift. Izuku fidgeted as he waited to be called to be introduced. He was surprised and happy that he wasn't the only new student waiting as a little girl with black, slightly spiky hair pulled up in a ponytail and black eyes that looked just as nervous as him. Is this your first day too? He asked. She let loose a small eep before turning to look at him. Why yes, my name is Momo Yorizu. Pleased to meet you, she said, bowing quickly. I'm Izuku Midoriya, and it is nice to meet you too, he replied, bowing. It's my first day too. Do you want to be friends? You want to be my friend? She asked, seemingly shocked. Uh-huh, he said, nodding his head. That way, we won't be lonely at recess or lunchtime. We can sit with each other and play. Do you not want to be my friend? I have never had a friend before, she replied, and I would like to have someone to play with and eat lunch with. Yes, I would very much like to be your friend. The teacher assistant watching this exchange just smiled and did her best not to laugh or giggle. Children had this way of connecting that adults didn't have anymore. It was all so simple for them. You're new, I'm new. Do you want to play? And that was it. When they were called in and introduced to the class with their practiced lines, Izuku's smile widened when he saw Set in the back of the course, waving her arms frantically in case he couldn't see her. When Izuku and Momo were directed to their seats, he ended up sitting in front of Set, and Momo took an empty chair to his left, next to the windows. As soon as recess was declared, Set, who was about to explode, jumped out of her seat and started asking Izuku questions. When he introduced Set to Momo, the green-haired girl looked at her and raised an eyebrow. "Is she cool?" Set asked. "I am sure she is," he said. "Okay, Momo, if you want to be cool, you must answer one question." Momo gulped and nodded nervously. She didn't know what being cool was, but it seemed necessary. "What is the best dinosaur ever?" Izuku frantically squibbed the word Trex on a piece of paper and held it up over Set's head. Momo had already started to answer. "I like the Brontosaurus." She paused, seeing the paper Izuku was frantically waving. "But the Trex T-Rex is the best?" "Okay, you're cool. We can be friends," Set said, smiling before she grabbed Momo and Izuku's hands and pulled them out to the play yard. Momo got the introduction to the cool kids as they started up a game of tag, Izuku being it, as he was the new kid. While running off to chase the other kids, he noticed a boy with two-toned hair sitting under a tree, looking lonely. Izuku walked over. "Hey, do you want to play with us?" The boy looked up at Izuku. "I can't," he said. "I'm not cool. I don't like dinosaurs." The boy seemed so sad. "Well, I think that's okay. Do you want to play with us?" "I do, but Setsuna said I couldn't," he replied. Set and Ko came looking for Izuku as no one was being chased. "Izuku, why did you stop?" "Oh, why are you talking to him? He isn't cool," Set said. "But he wants to play and looked sad," Izuku replied. "But the dinosaurs?" Set whined. Momo walked over and looked at the boy sitting, looking so sad. "I'll play with you," Momo said, touching his shoulder. "And so will Izuku. He is nice, I promise." "Yup, I will play with you," Izuku said. "Come on, Set." "Fine, he can play, but he isn't one of the cool kids," she said, crossing her arms and looking to the side. "Now, what is your name?" "Not cool kid." "Shoto Todoroki," he said, smiling and getting to his feet. "But I can make ice? Doesn't that make me cool?" "Wait, what? Show us." Set demeanor changed. All the other kids gathered around. Shoto concentrated hard and created a ball of ice in his hand, to the oohs and ahs of the kids. It suddenly became a game of showing your quirk and not tag. Momo followed when she lifted her shirt, revealing her tummy. It began to glow, and a Russian nesting doll suddenly popped out. It was when she told them that later, once she learned more, she could make almost anything, like shirts or shoes, even a cannon. That everyone perked up. Set, of course, picked up her head off her shoulders like a dullahan, cackling loudly. Momo's initial scream quickly put an end to it till Set was able to explain her quirk. Izuku was bouncing up and down, almost vibrating with excitement, till Momo made the fatal mistake. "Izuku, do you have a question?" What followed was a torrent of words that strung together at such a rapid pace that almost this wall of speech formed from his mouth and bombarded the three with questions about their quirks. Well, they thought he was asking questions, but none of them were sure. In fact, he talked so much that he fell back and passed out for a moment, making all the kids scream. Once he caught his breath, he sat up like a vampire rising from their crypt. "Is that your quirk talking fast?" Shoto asked. "No, I can stop time," he replied, trying to figure out how he ended up on the floor. "Wait, you can stop time?" Momo said. "That is amazing." "See, I told you Izuku was cool," Set added. "How does it work?" Shoto asked. "I don't know. I just know when I do it, I start to get cold, and I have to stop." He followed up with his rock demonstration to the wonder of the kids. Shoto bit his lip before touching Izuku's shoulder, lightly activating his fire quirk. "Wait, you have two quirks," Izuku yelled. All the other kids turned and looked at Shoto in wonder. With a mumbled response in the affirmative and a nod of his head, "I don't like to use the fire part. I only like the ice." "Why?" Izuku asked. "You don't have to say if you don't want to." "My dad pushes me hard. We train every day, and I don't like using my fire, and it makes him upset. My older brother is also mad at me, and I don't know why," he responded, wiping a few tears. "I just want to be the hero that saves people and makes them feel safe." "Then you should do that," Izuku said. "I'm sorry. I want to be a hero too. I want to be a hero that never gives up, that will always fight to save people." I think it would be cool if we could be heroes together. I would like that. I want to be a hero, too, Momo said, smiling at the two boys. I want to be a great hero and keep everyone safe. Yo, don't forget about me, Set said. I am going to be the bestest hero that everyone cheers for when I show up, because I am going to beat the bad guy and save everyone. Soon, the other kids were chiming in with their hero dreams. Shoto looked at Izuku. Can I be a hero without using his fire? I am sure you can, but it would be silly, Izuku responded. Why only use one half your power? It's your power in the end. I can't tell you how to use it. Momo touched Shoto's shoulder. It is your quirk. Even if you had the same quirk as your dad, it is still yours. Before they could go any further, the bell rang, signaling the end of recess. As the group all walked back into class, Shoto said, "Does this mean we are friends?" Yes, everyone responded. Even if you don't like dinosaurs, you want to be a hero, which is pretty cool, Set said, wiggling her eyebrows. Get it because of your quirk. You make ice. The other kids groaned as they crossed the threshold into class. What, it was funny. Set then proceeded to try and explain her joke, which, as anyone knows, is never good. End of the first day, Momo climbed into her seat in the back of the limo. Her driver, Aoi, closed the door. The little girl sighed. She hoped to talk to her parents later that night to tell them about all the new friends she made. Set waved goodbye to her friends as she headed to the main campus where her mom was a teacher. She skipped there. Today had been such a great day. Now, only if her friends could find their sense of humor. She had laid down some great puns and one-liners today, and none of them got it. Izuku ran when he saw his mom standing by her car, waiting. He barreled into her and immediately started rambling about how great his first day was. Inko, well versed in this, would interrupt key moments, forcing him to take a breath. She was pleased he had made so many friends on his first day. He seemed much happier at the academy, reinforcing that she had made the right decision. Shoto climbed into the back of the limousine. His mother sat opposite as the driver pulled away to the other pickup locations for his siblings. How was your day, Shoto? She asked. You are in a much better mood today. I made some friends today, he responded. It was nice to play with them, and we even sat together at lunch. Izuku even shared some cookies with me. Is that so? She said, smiling. Maybe we can invite them over. Wouldn't father be upset? Then we will make sure that he isn't home, Ray said, smiling. Chapter 3. To sleep, perchance to dream. Chapter text. How does our perception of time impact its passage? As a child, events like birthdays and Christmas seem so distant, and it takes forever for them to return. However, as adults, time seems to be in short supply, and those important moments keep approaching faster and faster, leaving us questioning how time has slipped away so quickly. Let's talk about the children. The mothers had to talk and get to know each other for 2 weeks before allowing their children to gather at the Todoroki household for a play date and sleepover. Though it may have felt like an eternity for the kids, Inko was surprised at how quickly the day arrived. She was talking to Rei Todoroki, having just dropped over Izuku's overnight bag, making sure Rei had Inko's contact information, which the woman did, as that was how this all got set up. Rei displayed patience and a reassuring smile as she assured the concerned mother, Inko, that Izuku would be safe and returned by 7 p.m. the next day. She promised to keep Inko updated and to have Izuku call her. Inko left before the children were released because she had to meet with Kobayashi regarding offers on their old apartment and paperwork for the new place. Hisashi had reached out in anger when his lawyer received the new divorce paperwork. Had he played the sweet, apologetic husband, he may have been able to manipulate Inko. She did still love him. That emotion doesn't disappear overnight, no matter how much we would wish it so. Instead, he became angry, cursing and saying all the wrong things. Inko was what one would say meekly. Her self-esteem had been slowly dropping since the day she married Hisashi and his disappearance from her life. Then finding out about the affair had not helped the matter. But her anger and the fact that not one word out of his mouth was about Izuku awakened the lioness. Her mind replayed that day on the bench not long ago of her son crying, wondering why Hisashi had given up on him and how he could do better to get him back. Izuku asked her if she would give up and how that broke her heart. 1. Don't you ever call and talk to me that way. She said into the phone, her voice becoming clearer with each word. You come home, make love to me, then just abandon your son and wife for some other woman and offer this generous settlement. You don't get to dictate terms to me. You no longer get to say how things will be done or handled. Either sign the paperwork, or I will see you in court. Never call me again. She hung up the phone and blocked his number. She didn't leave until she saw Izuku climb into Rei's vehicle. Satisfied, she left. The trip to the playdate. Momo had been inside a limo all her life. Now, had she climbed into a normal vehicle, that would have inspired a sense of wonder and awe. Setsuna and Izuku, on the other hand, were the exact opposite. They were so stunned that their mouths were gapped looking at it all. Momo introduced herself properly and gave Izuku a polite but firm elbow that brought him back to the world to introduce himself, and Setsuna did right after. Shoto was confused by his friend's reactions, but he found it amusing. Shoto found that Izuku, and Momo behaved differently than anticipated, but he enjoyed their company nonetheless. Although he found the other members of their group equally pleasant, he felt a special connection with these three. When he was feeling lonely, Izuku had reached out to him, Momo had eagerly invited him to play, and Set had quickly given in to their requests, making it impossible for him to stay upset with her. Set had this nature about her that would sweep you up and carry you along before you even knew what was happening. Rei had initially said only 2 friends, but Shoto had insisted on all 3, that it had to be all 3 of them. He wondered how his siblings would react to his friends. Izuku, who tended to be nervous, felt uneasy as the Todoroki family entered the car. Natsuo was the first to climb in. He looked ready to say something, but his mother's glare stopped him from speaking. His hair was completely white, and he had gray eyes. He introduced himself in a rehearsed and monotone voice, saying, I hope you all enjoy your time at our home. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. He then sat down and took out his handheld game console. Is that the Omega Portable 10? Setsuna asked. Yeah, he responded with a very can't-you-tell tone. What you are playing? She said, moving to sit next to him. He rolled his eyes, but Rei's look stopped him from saying anything negative. Fantasy's End, Alpha Watch 8. I have that one. I am in the last zone. Zola is a pain, but I have to grind up some before I take him on, she said. There is no way you are on Zola, he responded indigently. I haven't even gotten past Kree. He is like impossible. Set reached into her bag and pulled out her gaming system, but hers was green and had some dinosaur stickers. Of course, she powered it up and showed him her character. You are probably using the wrong party. If you switch out the monk for the thief and have the hero dual wield, Kree is a piece of cake. Why would I dual wield? That skill sucks, Natsuo said in shock, looking at her hero's stats. Cause dummy. Once you get the skill to level 34, you unlock parry/counter. Then you just go defensive. Have the healer keep you full. The thief steals all of Kree's potions, and the trapper redirects aggro to the hero. She said, rolling her eyes. Does that work? He said, biting his thumb. Oh yeah, just grind up the levels, and you will see, she said confidently. They were lost in this little world where each one had the most intense looks of concentration on the screens before them. When Fuyumi entered, they both nodded in sync as a greeting, causing Izuku and Momo to giggle. Fuyumi seemed a little nervous as she greeted the rest of the kids. She had a head of white hair and tufts of red scattered throughout. All it took was a simple comment from Momo about how she liked the older girl's hair for them to start talking. Momo asking all kinds of questions excitedly, like she was talking to a big sister rather than her friend's sister. As an only child, Momo had wild dreams of older and younger siblings and what that would be like. Last to join them was Tuya. Like his siblings, his hair was white, and he rolled his eyes, taking a seat. A nudging from his mother got him to introduce himself at the very least. After his introduction, he crossed his arms and stared at the window. Izuku felt like somehow he got cheated. Set and Momo had made friends with the other siblings, but Tuya ignored any question that came his way or supplied simple answers. Izuku shrugged and instead focused on Shoto. Soon, the two were whispering about heroes and laughing. They were both talking about the recent debut of Mr. Mysterious and how he resembled other heroes, with Shoto sure that he was Dr. Knight in a new outfit. while Izuku thought it may be Captain Darkness. With all the children in their little worlds, they barely noticed the time it took to get to the Todoroki household. Rei Todoroki. Like the limo, the house's luxury did not affect Momo, but had a grand effect on Set and Izuku. The two greenettes seemed afraid to move in fear of breaking something that would cost a gazillion yen. After some coaxing from Momo, they soon seemed to forget and settle into the more important thing of playing. After all, they were four. That was not to say that the night was not without hiccups. A group of 4-year-olds will only agree on everything so many times before someone wants to do something different. Fuyumi, well-practiced in interfering in her brother's fights, could defuse things quickly, but other times, Rei stepped in. Soon after some tears, they were back to playing and laughing about whatever had just popped into their minds. Rei smiled, watching the little group drag her other children into whatever game they played. Fuyumi was the first to get pulled in, not that it required much effort before Natsuo was reluctantly pulled in. The last bastion of resistance was Tuya. He resisted until nighttime before the constant needling of his siblings and the others involved him in a hide-and-seek game. The house was full of laughter and cheer. Rei soaked it all in, drawing it into her soul. This was only possible because her husband was out of the country on a mission, as he would have never allowed this. Their marriage had been arranged for her, but as a dutiful daughter, she did her best to make things work. It was a Quirk marriage, once a widely accepted practice, but now heavily frowned upon. Enji Todoroki was at first kind and gentle with her. She began to dream of how their story would play out of an arranged marriage turning into real love. That changed after they were married. He had been gentle enough that first night, but after that, it was an obsession with her being pregnant. He tracked her cycle and would insist they perform coitus during those optimal times. It became cynical, cold, distant. Rei tried to make it more intimate, but he would have nothing to do with it. They slept in separate rooms, with him coming to her bed for the act before returning to his study or whatnot. A single message was all she was given when he was on his way. She was expected to make herself ready to receive, and that was that. Divorce or separation was not an option due to the marriage contract. It would destitute her and her family. She was in no position to hire lawyers to help her fight for custody of her children. Her love for them held her there. She loved them dearly and wanted them to live happy lives and chase their dreams. She would almost come to tears thinking they were alone with just their father. Her oldest was the source of much of her worry, as Tuya wanted so desperately to gain Enji's favor or, at the minimum, his acknowledgement that he trained his fire relentlessly, even when the evidence began to arise that his fire was hurting him. You see, most fire quirks make the user resistant at the very least to fire or heat. Tuya didn't have this. Instead, he inherited his mother's resistance to cold while he gained an even stronger version of Enji's fire. Enji would train Tuya, but as soon as this flaw was discovered, he wrote Tuya off as a lost cause. Fuyumi and Natsuo had weaker versions of Rei's quirk, which immediately made them not worth his time. Natsuo had expressed a desire to learn, but the dismissal by Enji had made him bitter, and soon, he chose the world of video games. After Natsuo's quirk manifested, Enji stopped coming to Rei's room. In truth, Enji's absence after Natsuo was welcomed. He would rarely come home, and that was fine. Word had reached her ears that he was spending time with a few of his sidekicks. Rei was slightly upset, but as he no longer made demands on her or her body, she was happy to look the other way. She did pray that he would father a few children out of wedlock and name one of them his heir, thus allowing her to break their marriage contract in her favor. With Enji gone, Rei had turned to her only friend, the person she had once dreamed of marrying before the quirk marriage. It was simply coffee or lunch before it turned to dinner and more. In the arms of her friend-turned-lover, she could find the intimacy that she had dreamed of and wasn't even aware she was craving. Word had reached her ears that he was spending time with a woman who had borne him a daughter and another who had borne him a son. Sadly, it seemed that whatever children he had fathered hadn't been up to snuff because she eventually received the message that she was to be ready. She remembered him coming home, her lover slipping out the window into the night, so she was ready to receive Enji. Rei closed her eyes and let him do his deed before he left. This happened over the next 3 days. She was pregnant like clockwork. He went back to ignoring her till the child was born. When Shoto was born, His hair perfectly blended with hers and Enji's, and his different colored eyes were mesmerizing. She instinctively knew that this was the child Enji was waiting for. She sighed and held her baby close, knowing the misery Enji would inflict upon her little Shoto. But she hoped that if she could show him a better way and a better life, she would do everything she could to ensure that Enji wouldn't be able to break him. Hence, she enrolled him in the academy and was so pleased when he told her about friends. With Enji gone, she wanted to give him an experience that would have otherwise been denied him. She sent her lover a picture of her kids and Shoto's friends on the couch, enraptured by some movie. Woodcutter, you deserve so much better than having to steal moments like this, Ray. I wish I were there to share this with you. Kagaya, I hate having to steal these moments just as much as I hate having to steal them with you. I miss you so much right now. When will you be home? Woodcutter, soon, my love. Soon. IG2G. Miss you. Kagaya, miss you too, be safe. The boys all slept in Shoto's room while the girls slept in Fuyumi's. Ray walked the house, peeking in on all the children and making sure to tuck them in before she went to her room as she lay down to sleep. She felt that if she just had more time, then things could be so much better. Time was always moving forward, never standing still. The next day was more of the same. Still, this time, the kids didn't have to work nearly as hard to wrangle her older boys into their antics, especially when the game turned into heroes, with Ray needing to be rescued from the clutches of Fuyumi and Natsuo, who were hamming up their roles as cartoon bad guys. When she witnessed Izuku disappear before her eyes, and suddenly her bonds were undone, and Natsuo was tied up, she knew she had stumbled upon something. Watching Set break apart and Float and Momo create nesting dolls as distractions were amazing. The part that Ray loved the most was when Shoto came over and hugged Izuku, bringing up his fire just a little bit as his friend sat on the ground, his teeth chattering. All the kids wanted to be heroes. Of course, they did. They were 4 years old. She could see Tuya wishing to say something as they were talking. She could see the anger towards his father, all the training he put in, only to be dismissed and then ignored when Shoto was born. She knew that Tuya didn't hate his little brother, but he resented him. Enji had no choice but to pay attention to Tuya as he was the only one pursuing heroics. But with Shoto's arrival, warm enough, Shoto asked Izuku. That was great. Thanks, Shoto, Izuku said, getting up. Do you have some ice, Quirk, also? Tuya asked, moving closer. No, I stopped time, Izuku said, smiling. But when I do, I start getting cold. The longer time is stopped, the colder I get. So, you couldn't stop time forever? The teen asked. I don't think so, Izuku replied. I wouldn't wanna. Being the only one moving would be lonely. But it would be fun to stop it for a long time for extra time in art class. Tuya just nodded and walked away to stand underneath a tree, watching the kids start up some new game with the ball Momo made. Ray walked over to her son and leaned against the other side of the tree. How come he gets everything? Tuya said. Father's attention, little friends to be heroes with. Is having your father's attention all the good? She countered. He doesn't show Shoto affection or spend special time with him. Instead, he drills him as he does you. You mean did? Tuya responded, the bitterness in his voice present. I just wanted to matter to him, but… Tuya, Ray said, nothing matters to your father besides a stupid fantasy that will mean nothing except to him. What does it say that your father couldn't accomplish his goal and had to hoist it onto his children? Do you want to be a hero, Tuya? I do, Mom, I do, he said, wiping away a stray tear. Why do you want to be a hero? She pressed. Look at your little brother and his friends. Why do they want to be heroes? Because they are 4, Mom, he sighed. Everyone wants to be a hero when they get their quirk. Even Natsuo and Fuyumi also wanted to. That is how it all starts, Tuya. Then they grow up, and things change. They change, the world changes, or the person they looked up to changes. Or we begin to see them for what they are, Ray said, reaching around the tree and taking her son's hand. If you want to be a hero, then it has to be for your reasons, not your father's, not mine, but your own. You are risking your life. It is your life, Tuya. You want me to quit, he whispered. If you want to quit, then I will support you. If you want to keep going, I will support you. But you need to find a better way. Tuya, you are hurting yourself, trying too hard to be like him and not like yourself. She gently squeezed his hand. I am not hurting. Tuya, I am your mother. Try lying to someone else. She tugged him into a cool embrace. If you want to stick it in the face of your father, then become the #1 hero your way, not his. I love you. Tuya, Fuyumi, Natsuo, and Shoto all love you. Don't let that bastard destroy you or the hero you dreamed about being when you were 4 years old. He won't like any of that, he said, hugging her back. Then we will just have to make sure not to tell him, she whispered. Tuya sat in his room that night, pencil curled between his upper lip and nose, leaning back in his chair. What kind of hero do I want to be? Shoto lay in his bed, drifting off to sleep, a smile on his lips. Today had been an almost perfect day. It just hadn't lasted long enough. He was sad when his friends had to go home, but knowing he would see them again on Monday soothed that ache. Lost in dreams of playtime and heroic adventures, he promised never to let his friends go and that he would be a hero they could be proud of. Ray sat in her garden, staring at her phone. She had started and deleted the message several times. Kagaya, I want out. The moon is too lonely. I can't let him destroy the children anymore. I want to be with you. Please help me. Woodcutter, I told you all you had to do was ask. Thus began a dangerous game. Ray was going to save her family and herself. Now, she just needed the time to pull it off. Chapter 4, A Rolling Stone. Chapter text. How do you change how you have done something your whole life? You try to find a better way, or at least a different way. That better way lay in the depths of the internet. A beast that Toya wasn't as adept at taming, but knew someone with the skill he could trust. He turned to Natsuo. Hey, little brother, I need your help, he said from the doorway. Natsuo was stunned. Toya never came to ask him for help. Not that they didn't get along. They didn't get along like that. It was more of a hey, Dad is making us move this thing, lift the other end. Toya was always training or in his room, while Natsuo was playing games most of the time. He figured it was a lifting and moving kind of thing, so he shrugged and set his game down. Better to get it taken care of before the Oni came home and started his rampage. Fine, he spat out, exasperated. Follow me. Natsuo just nodded and followed his brother. He was expecting to be led to the dojo or any other part of the house, to be honest, not to his brother's room. When he entered, he got slightly nervous when Toya closed the door and played music. He wondered if Toya knew it was him who had eaten his pudding. Sweat beaded on his brow, and he replayed his crime, wondering what evidence he had left. So, what do you need, Toya? He said, trying to sound calm, but screaming he was guilty of something. Look, this isn't about the pudding. Natsuo visibly relaxed, then tensed again as his brother knew about pudding. I need your help with something on the internet. I need you to help me find someone, or maybe it is something. Okay, like, are we going illegal here? Natsuo asked, confused but honestly excited. No, nothing illegal. I know you can find things faster than I can. I want to find out if there has ever been another hero out there that gets hurt from using their quirk, his brother said quietly. His name is Ignis, Natsuo said quickly. Toya looked at his brother, shocked. He is either old or dead now, no one knows. However, he wrote a book that is hard to find and is in Italian. I may not like the old man. I may not want to be a hero anymore. But you, my brother Toya. Why didn't you say anything? I started to, but you told me to shut up. Natsuo looked his brother in the eyes. I got mad, so I walked away. I'm sorry, Natsuo, but I want to be a hero. I can't/won't do it his way. He doesn't even care anyway. But I want to be a hero, my own hero, despite or in spite of him. Toya looked at Natsuo directly, pausing for a second. If you want to be a hero, you should do it your way. But my quirk isn't that strong, he protested, looking down. And I have no one to help me. I will help you, Toya said, crossing the distance between them and placing his hand on his shoulder. We need to do what we want and how we want. We won't be in his house forever, and I don't want to live in his shadow. What if he gets mad? Natsuo said quietly, reluctantly. Then he will just have to make sure not to tell him, Toya said, hugging his brother. Natsuo stiffened briefly before returning his brother's hug. A gulf had developed between them, a slow widening chasm. It was closed in this moment. They held each other for a moment, each fighting back a few tears. Kagaya and the woodcutter. Are you sure about this? The woodcutter said, her hand slipping below the coat rack to take Kagaya's. I am, she whispered. I can no longer sit back and let him destroy my children. That is what he is doing. His actions will push them to a place I don't think I can bring them back from. Shoto's little friends managed to do more for him in the short time they have known him than that man has ever done. I love you. Once we start, there is no stopping. I don't want to stop. I want to be free. I want them to be free. She squeezed her lover's hand. I love you too. I had to walk away once. I must hide you now. I don't want that. I want to sleep in your arms and wake the same way. With all that I am and will ever be, I am yours. The woodcutter whispered back. I have to get to work. They will notice if I am gone too long. Then go, but hurry back to me once you are able. I await your return. Kagaya said. They squeezed hands as the woodcutter left the store. Inko walked out in a daze. She had just received a promotion. She had put in for it a while ago, but it had been so long that she thought the position had been filled. A set schedule and pay increase had been a long shot, but she stepped into a nearby restroom to cry some tears of joy. The ringing of her phone forced her quick composure. This is Inko, she said, still pulling her emotions together. Hello, Ms. Midoriya. This is Alexander Rilan from the Atarashi High Condos. The voice said. Hello, Rilan-san. How can I help you? She said, her heart pounding again. Your bid has been accepted for the apartment. You are welcome to come down at your earliest convenience to sign the paperwork and pick up your keys, Rilan-san said, his voice sounding chipper. That is wonderful. I will be by tomorrow at, say, 8:15? Inko was doing her best to keep the excitement out of her voice. We will see you then. The line went dead. Inko danced a little joyfully. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself, but couldn't stop grinning. Now, she just needed to sell the old apartment, and that phone call came later. Mirai Zayden Academy. Everything is moving as ordered, sir, Isuru said, looking up from her tablet. The promotion, the approval of the new apartment, and the sale of the old one. According to the reports, she is rather happy. We do not interfere with the divorce proceedings as first thought. Her lawyer is rather capable, disturbingly so. His name, Rito said, not gazing off the courtyard below where students were eating lunch. Kobayashi. Look into him. His name doesn't sound familiar, Rito said. Is she suspicious at all? It doesn't seem so. We should let things progress naturally to avoid raising any suspicions. Her son has made several friends as he was already acquainted with Mrs. Tokai's daughter. He also has befriended Ms. Yayorozu and the youngest Todoroki, pulling them into the circle. She looked at her tablet. I would recommend at this moment that we keep them together, as separating them may be adverse to the development we seek. The doctor. Being kept at bay, he no doubt isn't fooled by our covert actions. It doesn't matter. We can't have another failure like Shigaraki, he said. And if he insists, she said, holding the tablet behind her. Then we remind them that this is a mutually beneficial relationship, and we can end our part any time we choose. If he needs a demonstration, send the signal to disrupt their network for a few minutes. We should begin to mobilize our forces for a rapid response. All for One is likely going to throw a temper tantrum. He looked down at the students again. Make sure he understands that I do not suffer fools. Yes, sir. Time. Everything has a cost. Nothing is free. That cost beyond anything monetary or physical is time. Time is part of the cost for all things in the world. You spend it constantly, even when you don't consciously think about it. The Midoriyas. Inko and Izuku were all smiles as they packed their apartment. Izuku was happy that some of his mom's co-workers surprised her by showing up to help them pack. He was glad to be leaving this place, to move on from everything that reminded him of that man. Inko was surprised when Izuku told her he wanted to get rid of some of his All Might toys, but she soon realized that they were presents Hisashi had sent or given him. The ones her son was confident his mother had gotten him cut. The man was too scared and had given up on him and his mom. He wasn't strong enough, but Izuku was going to show him. This may have been a problem for others' way of thinking, but Izuku never considered it physical strength as Bakugo did. It was the will to keep trying and pushing forward. His dad didn't have that will. Izuku would make sure that he never let those he cared about down. He would never give up on them or leave them behind. The movers came the next day to gather all the stuff being taken to their new home. Inko and Izuku stood in the doorway staring at the near-empty apartment, his arm around her waist and hers around his shoulders. He looked up at the sound of his mom sniffling. "Mommy, you okay?" he said worriedly. "I am, sweetie. One day, when you are older, you will understand. I am happy about our new beginning, but this isn't how I ever imagined leaving this place." She hugged him tight to her side. "But it is you and me, kiddo, until you get married. Then you have to give me many grandbabies to care for." "Ew," Izuku said, sticking out his tongue. "That's gross." "We will see, my little hero," she teased as they left, the door closing behind them. Inko stopped at the building manager's office, who was sad to see the family go but happy for the good fortune that seemed to be coming their way. "The Yaoyorozu." Momo looked at her mother quizzically. "Are you saying I can have them over for a sleepover? And swimming?" "Yes, dear. Why must it be one or the other? You can invite the parents as well. We would love to meet them, wouldn't we, dear?" her mother said, to the silence of her husband looking over a data tablet. She gently nudged him with her elbow. "What? Oh, yes, it would be lovely indeed," he said quickly. "Daddy, what did Mommy even ask you?" Momo said, giggling behind her hand. "A great and lovely idea that your mom talked to me about, and I completely agree with it," he said, very sure of himself. "He doesn't know, does he?" Momo said to her mom. "Of course he does, dear. He knows that I told him, and that is all that matters." Her mother smiled. "Daddy knows that Mommy is right." Momo nodded, still giggling. Momo's eyes went wide. She smiled broadly. "I have to make invitations." She ran to the craft room. Once Momo was out of earshot, "What did I agree to?" her father asked. "We are going to host a little party for Momo's friends," her mother said. "I believe that getting a chance to meet with Rei Todoroki is worth it. And besides, did you see how excited Momo was?" The Tokaiches. "Okay, we are going to be the super mighty elemental super lizards," Set said to herself, a large piece of construction paper on the floor before her. "I will have to be in charge cause I am the best." "You're the best." Her sister Hannah laughed as she looked at her phone. "Yeah, I got everyone together well except for Momo and Shoto. That was Izuku, but everyone loves me, and if we are going to be named after lizards, then I get to be in charge," Set said, not missing a beat. "What if they don't want to be on a team with you?" her sister teased. Set just looked at her sister like she had sprouted two heads or had said the dumbest thing ever. "Are you okay? Does Mom need to take you to the doctor?" "I'm just fine." "No, you must be running a fever, or maybe you finally went crazy because you are talking crazy," Set yelled. "Maybe one of your little friends would rather follow someone else who isn't always losing their limbs." Hannah stood up. "Because you know not everyone likes dinosaurs or lizards." "You take that back." "The T-Rex sucks," Hannah said slowly and deliberately. What erupted from Set was either an epic war scream or a little girl yelling at her sister. It would depend on who you asked. Set ran at her sister, knocking her back onto the couch. What then proceeded was an epic battle with Hannah running around with Set's arm, locking it in a closet, and Set stealing Hannah's phone. Kicking and biting may have been employed by both combatants. Their father found them yelling and crying at each other. In the end, everything was returned. The honor of the T-Rex was restored, and both girls sniffled, hugging their dad. When their mother walked in, she smiled and went to the kitchen to start the family dinner. "What did the doctor say today, Daddy?" Set said as she tried to see if she could physically merge her cells with her dad. "They said everything is still the same, that I just need to keep up on my medication." He squeezed his girls to him. "Your dad is not going anywhere yet. Not till you both get married and name your first grandchildren after me." "Okay," Hannah said. "Ew," Set squirmed. "Well, I am never going to get married or have kids, so you have to live forever." Set stopped and paused. "Unless I can hatch them, then maybe." Her father's warm laughter filled the room. "We will see, my little lizardy, we will see." Endeavor. He sat in his office, focused more on the world outside the windows than the paperwork on his desk. It was all right there. He could fulfill his dream with Shoto, a hero that would surpass all might, His son would dethrone the #1 hero. He just had to deal with Rei's interference. She kept telling him that he was driving Shoto hard and that he needed to be allowed to be a child. He had allowed her to enroll him in that school with the other children to soothe her. It didn't seem to have an adverse effect, so that he could allow it now. Though a shift to private tutors to allow for more training would be better, he would do that soon. Standing up, he grabbed a file from his drawer and looked out the city. Rei needed to be distracted. Maybe he should give her another child to do just that. The woodcutter. The woodcutter stepped onto the street and quickly headed to the left. It wasn't long till a black sedan pulled up, the back door opened, and they quickly stepped in. "Where to miss?" the driver said. "Back to the office." The woodcutter responded as she raised the partition and activated an anti-surveillance device. She pulled out a phone. It was a very old model. To anyone outside, it would have been shocking that I worked. She was staring at it momentarily before taking a deep breath. Hesitantly, she scrolled through the contacts, her eyes settling on one name. She closed her eyes as she hit send. "What a surprise, my dear." A chipper voice rang out on the other side. "To what do I owe the honor?" "I am willing to roll over," the woodcutter said. "And the price?" "I want the moon," she said. I must expose Enji Todoroki, his affairs, and misdeeds. I need to bring him low so I can have the moon." "I believe I can help with that," the voice responded. "You know my price? You give me this, and I will give you what you want." A mole inside the Hero Commission. The woodcutters responded. "Excellent. I will be in touch, Lady Nagant." The line went dead. Kana Tsutsumi leaned back into her seat. She closed her eyes as the world passed by, as time rolled ever forward. She was about to play a very dangerous game. The Hero Commission would not take kindly to her spying on them. But Kana was willing to play this game for Rei. She was ready to risk everything. After all, she had killed for less. Now, if she had to, she would kill for Rei. Chapter 5 Gathers No Moss. Chapter text. Endeavor was, for a lack of a better word, upset. He had told Rei to prepare herself, and she had responded with no. He stormed into the house, barreling past his children, who wisely kept quiet upon seeing the look on his face. They were surprised to see their father in such an apparent state of anger and to see him in the early afternoon. He found his wife sitting in the garden, drinking tea. He stormed out a furious ball of rage and slammed his fist on the little table, nearly breaking the thing in half. "Is something vexing you, my husband?" Rei responded as if he was nothing more than a gentle summer breeze. "I told you to prepare yourself for me," he seethed. "And you dare to tell me no." "That is correct," she replied, sipping her tea. "Would you care to explain yourself?" Her casual tone with him was doing nothing more than fueling his anger and fire. "If you insist," she gestured with her hand as if trying to think of the words. "I am not in the mood nor wish to bear another child right now." "I don't remember asking." "That is correct. You didn't ask," Rei replied, hints of anger dancing in her voice. "You never asked, to be exact, and this time, my answer would still be no even if you had asked. You dare to disrespect me in my house." He slammed his fist again, breaking the table, his voice on par with a roar. "You are my wife, and you will obey me." "I will do nothing of the sort." She rose from her chair and faced him. "I am your wife, not your slave, and not your broodmare. If I ever desire to have children again, I will bring the subject to you then. Until then, do you not have an agency to run? I have to prepare dinner for the children." Rei went to walk past him, but he reached out and snagged her arm. "When I return home tonight, you will make yourself ready for me." "You are hurting my arm," she replied as his fire flared. So suddenly did her ice, making him release her arm as frost overtook his hand. "I will not. And if should you feel otherwise, you will find a cold reception waiting for you." She looked down towards his crotch. "And you remember." She walked back into the house. He exploded in rage, scorching the garden before storming out. Once he was in his car, he was seething. He needed some release. "Hello, it is me. Are you available?" "Good. I will be there soon." Gathers no moss. Quirks are amazing. According to some, they would be called bullshit. Livewire was in the latter category, depending on who you asked. Aside from being a brilliant hacker, his quirk allowed him to shape change into almost any object. A chair, a seat, a wallet, a woman's purse. He was a cold, ruthless killer and one of the best assassins on the planet. He had morals in his way, a set of rules he lived by. He had been in the game so long that he could decide who he worked for and when. No one, even alive, knew what he looked like. He had infiltrated Endeavor's agency. He was on the man's wrist. Endeavor was a piece of work, but he wasn't dumb. Livewire had to give him that. He didn't keep his essential files on the servers at work. Most of them were not even digital. The main problem is that Endeavor didn't throw away files and clean up after himself like he should. Reading his files on all the women he investigated for a Quirk marriage and the reports had been, shall we say, not fun. But it was through these files he kept that Livewire found Mistress Number 1. Her name was Frost. A tiny-time hero, but a fantastic figure. Her hero career was cut short when she overexerted her quirk while keeping a building from collapsing, which required 5-point contact and lost part of a few fingers. Now, more contact, no more quirk, no more heroics. Endeavor came in like a man who cared, thanking her for her noble sacrifice and helping to make sure she was okay after such a traumatic ordeal. Frost fell for him hard, and he used that, stringing her along, using her to the tune of 2 children. When the first didn't produce a fire quirk, Endeavor managed to play it off. After all, there was still the second, and that one didn't either. The second one absorbed heat when her quirk manifested in nearly killing another child. To her small credit, Frost knew what was happening was wrong, but he spun the tale of a loveless marriage that he would soon leave her. Of course, she believed him. She was in love with him. He had come in when she was the most vulnerable and taken her off her feet. Mistress Number 2 was a whole different sort. That was who he was on his way to see at this very moment. This poor thing had crossed his internship path. The stars in her eyes were for him. She worshipped him, the ground he walked on. His words were her gospel. He used and degraded her to his delight, and all she would do was ask for more. He had allowed her to bear him a child only to ensure her loyalty, and it had done just that. The little boy had a fire quirk. He couldn't create fire but bend and shape it. To her, he was too fantastic to have one woman. He should have all he desired and craved. Whether it be her sister or anyone else, he would bring by. He was a king, and one day she would be his queen. Then there were the accidents that had to be cleaned up. Endeavor was mighty, and for all his faults, he did train somewhat hard to keep his fire from causing collateral damage, but it did happen. He would pay to make it go away, well, him and the Hero Commission. He was so obsessed with his ranking that he would pay people off to keep it out of the public, and Hero Commission would sweep it under the rug. The tighter and the more obsessed you become with something, the more your rational thought fails you in what you are doing. It was akin to trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The pool party. Inko had been stunned when little Momo approached her after school and handed her an invitation to a pool party and sleepover for Izuku at her house. She could tell the charming little girl was both excited and nervous. The homemade invitation put it all over the edge. She wanted to swoop the little girl into her arms and hug her tight. But she knew that it would be highly inappropriate for her to do so. Of course, she RSVP'd right then and there. On the day of the event, Inko seriously reconsidered her decision as she drove up to the Yaoyorozu estate mansion. Inko wondered what she was honestly expecting. She saw little Momo climb in and out of a limo every day. It was the cutest thing in the morning. She would climb out immediately, but adequately look around for her friends. When she saw them run some before remembering that she was supposed to be a lady and walking to join them, she was very fast, but walking nonetheless. Inko could already tell that she would be a beautiful young woman. Once through the gate, they pulled up to the house. Inko taking a moment to check herself in the mirror. She could have been in her best clothing and still would have felt underdressed. The children were to have their swim party while the adults visited. Make connections, she guessed. She didn't know how much she could make a connection with the Yaoyorozu or the Todoroki. She was just the head nurse, but she thought she would make some small talk for a bit before going to watch over the children. As they approached, another car pulled up, nice but not too nice, so Inko breathed a sigh of relief when little Set stepped out of the car, grabbed her bag, and raced to Izuku. Set froze, and the largest smile broke out when Izuku revealed a new t-shirt. It had a T-Rex with the little dino head grabber claws in its hands, and the caption read, "Now I am unstoppable." "I love it," she yelled, hugging her friend. "Let's go Dino buddies." She pulled him to the door. Inko smiled, turning to Set's mother. The woman had surprisingly large, upturned, dusky black eyes, long lower eyelashes, and a charming smile. Set, don't run, she said before bowing to Inko. Ichika Tokage. Inko Midoriya, but please call me Inko, she said, returning the woman's bow. Then please call me Ichika. Set tells me so much about your little boy. The woman leaned in. If they were older, I would say she is quite smitten. Inko giggled a little. I agree with how he talks about her. He talks about all his little friends, but your daughter, Momo, and Shoto are his focal points. I have noticed that also. Ichika and Inko began to walk towards the house following their children. This place is so huge, I feel drastically underdressed. As do I, Inko added. The two women laughed as they were escorted in. Much like Inko, Rei couldn't resist when Momo gave her the invitation. She had given her 3. One for Shoto, one for Fuyumi, and another for her and the boys. It was just this precious moment watching Momo doing her best not to be nervous. But of course, Rei could tell that little girl was nervous being a mother herself. She informed Inji that she was taking the children to go swimming. He began to protest, but he quickly stopped when she told him that it was at Yaoyorozu Estate and that she would talk with the lady of the house while the children frolicked in the pool. The verbal wordplay between the two ladies was quickly dismantled by Inko and Ichika as the two women, while maintaining polite conversation, treated the two women like other mothers. Rei, who had more dealings with Inko, was the first to slip, but when it happened, a shy Yaoyorozu smiled and did her best to fall into the conversation. Rei shared a secret smile with Ashai. Today was not about gaining anything other than allowing their children to play together. It was time for the children to be children. The family talk was the best topic. This way, they found out that Set's father was sick. Ichika put on a face of optimism, but Rei and Ashai knew what lay behind that face. Set and her sister Hannah knew he was ill, but like their mother, they remained optimistic for the future. Hannah was coming to the realization sooner as she was older, but Set being so young still. Once a glass of wine was in hand, the conversation became easier and began to flow. Each woman had a different relationship with their husband. Rei kept it diplomatic, saying that Enji was always working, and being the number 2 hero in Japan kept him away a lot. Rei did slip in some subtle words that maybe things weren't perfect. Ashai's husband, Goro, was a workaholic. He was a good husband, but a multinational conglomerate took a lot of time and attention to run. Ichika was watching her husband slowly die, and Inko was divorced or in the process of divorce. The children were having the time of their lives, with Momo doing her best to be a good little host before the fun of a party took over, and she did what all the kids did, and that was playing. Eventually, the mother made their way to a balcony overlooking the controlled chaos down below, and it was in that they all found some peace in watching their children be just that. Ever think of having another? Rei asked Ashai. There are times. Ashai looked at her daughter, chasing Fuyumi around the pool with a look of sheer delight on her face. I know that Momo would love to have a baby sibling. It is something that we have discussed, but no firm answer has been decided on. I don't think I will have any more. For is more than enough. Rei looked over the railing, a smile broadening on her face as Natsuo, Shoto, and Izuku all teamed up to knock Toya into the pool. Of course, her eldest made sure to pull in his siblings, leaving Izuku celebrating in triumph only for Set to come up and knock him in while he was distracted. It then became a game that would be the last one dry, which no one won as Fuyumi pulled in Momo when they had knocked in Set. Needless to say, the betrayal that day came swift and furious as various pool games were played. The children sat happily with their parents and ate lunch before having a ping-pong tournament, with Fuyumi taking the victory before they returned to the pool. Ashai. After dinner, Rei, Inko, and Ichika took their leave, thanking Ashai, who was trying to get the ladies to spend the night, but other duties called. Ashai stood happily in the doorway, looking at all the sleeping children who hadn't even made it halfway through the movie before falling asleep. She couldn't remember seeing her little Momo smile so much in one day. The laughter echoing off the walls just brought the house to life. Ashai sent a simple message to Goro. I want more children. She saw the 3 dots appear and disappear several times. Ashai sent him videos of Momo and the joy she had today. Goro, I will take some time off next month, but will be home next Tuesday. We can talk then, Asai. I love you. You know that, right? Shai. I do, my love. I have never doubted that or your love for me or Momo. I know what you do is essential, but Momo misses you. You won't get this time back. Soon, she will be running off to some hero course, and the next you know, you will meet her fiancé as she gets ready to marry. Goro, you are right. I have a responsibility to the company, but I also have a responsibility to my family. Let us talk more when I see you. Shai. Sounds good. I love you, Goro. Ashai had made her way to bed and had just begun to settle under the blankets when her phone chimed again. Goro, so what are you wearing? Ashai blushed and stuttered aloud before taking a deep breath and responding. Your favorite black pajamas. I may have forgotten my undergarments tonight. Ichika. She returned to the familiar and warm sight of her husband sitting on the couch, reading a book. How was your day? He asked, not looking up. She knew he was getting to the end of a paragraph before stopping. She went to the kitchen to make them some tea, but stopped and brought back a bottle of wine instead. It was much fun. Seth had a blast. Hannah, she said from the kitchen, hopeful. Good. She is staying the night at Zana's. She undid a few buttons on the top of her shirt. Taking a deep breath, she walked back to the living, doing her best to put a little wiggle in her walk. Are you tired? No. I am feeling good today. He set his book down and froze, seeing his wife standing, looking so very sexy. Then why don't you join me in the bedroom? We can talk. She turned and walked down the hall. She couldn't see the grin on his face as he scrambled to get up and follow her down the hall. Inko. Inko walked into the empty apartment. It felt cold with Izuku not home, but much more like home than their previous place. She made herself a large cup of tea and went to her office. Powering up her computer, she smiled as she logged into her chat room and saw the name she had hoped to see. Rip Van Winkle. Persephone, do you ever sleep? Rip Van Winkle. Sometimes, my job has me going at all hours, mostly at night, and I need help to get enough sleep. But that tea you recommended with a little bit of honey worked wonders. Persephone, I love it. It helps me so much when I get home late from a work shift and need to relax. Rip Van Winkle, that is right. You got a promotion recently. How is that? Persephone, great. It was so unexpected. But it is going well. The extra money and the more stable hours are excellent. I was happy to see you online. Rip Van Winkle, I have to admit I thought that I would hear from you tonight, as you said you had plans. Persephone, my plans are all wrapped up, so you have me for a few hours at least. So did you sit down and talk with your friend? Rip Van Winkle. Persephone, R.I.P. You need to talk to him. He probably doesn't know that he made you upset. If you don't tell him, you can ruin what you said was your oldest friend. Rip Van Winkle, I will talk to him tomorrow. Persephone, promise? Rip Van Winkle, I promise. Let me message you back. I have to handle something. Persephone, okay, be safe. Rip Van Winkle, I will. Rip Van Winkle. He set his phone in his pocket and brought the binoculars up. There you are, scumbag. Rip smiled, hiding it behind his trademark scarf. I was wondering when you would show up. You are not getting away tonight. Karaji Hi. Netsu Oba lay in bed next to the most extraordinary person on the planet. Thankful it was a large bed as her king had a voracious appetite tonight. She had been forced to sit and watch as these lesser women serviced and pleasured her king. His seed dripping out of their lesser sexes, she had been allowed to consume it so it did not fall to the floor. For hours, she waited until the hunger in her eyes and her heart reached her king, and he called her to the bed. Legends should be made of how he would make love to her. How he used her body was nothing short of magical and nothing short of ecstasy. This other woman didn't understand the king's need, how he needed to vent his frustration and the world's cruelty. Her body could satisfy his needs. Her quirk gave her a minor form of regeneration. He could let go with her. She was the only one who understood and could do this for her king. How dare this pretender, this false queen, deny her king another heir? Women should be lining up for the glory and honor of bearing the king a child. She waited with an ache for the day she would again be allowed the honor. Her child was nothing perfect, and she would make sure to give him all the best that he was entitled to by birthright. But the false queen had gone too far. Netsu tolerated her existence as she had given the king a worthy heir at long last, but now she was doing it to anger and defy him. If her king ordered her to service him in a crowded restaurant, Netsu would, as should any woman. Her king had said he had grown weary of the false queen and tired of how she looked at him, not with awe and reverence, but with hatred and disdain. How the queen would never come to his chambers, how nightly she would not only not service the king, but now did not comply when the king had ordered it. Netsu reached over and took the king's phone. Unlocking it with his print, she looked at his schedule. Next month, he would have to go away on a mission. He would be out of town, which would be perfect. Netsu was going to remove the queen and the unworthy heirs. Then only the worthy would be left, and she could become his queen, give him respect, and serve him how he should be. Yes, it would be perfect. Long live the queen. Chapter 6. Long live the queen. Chapter text. As you open the door, the hinges creak ever so slightly. The dark room is suddenly illuminated. Everyone gasped as the room map, covered with a black cloth, was slowly pulled away. There in the center of the room, upon a pile of gold, rested your foe, the evil wizard's pet. Momo reached out her hand and closed her eyes. It began to glow with her quirk, and a prominent white dragon figure emerged with a scar on its right eye and a damaged wing. Beyond it lies the only path up the mountain. You can feel the magical energy getting stronger. The rhythmic beating of the drums begin to filter in. You can feel the air getting colder, the warmth of the world be sucked away. Though injured, the mighty white dragon is on its feet. It's one good eye fixed on the party. It pays special attention to the druid lizardry. With a mighty roar, it challenges you to battle as frost golems free themselves from their walled imprisonment. Roll initiative. The wizard lies at your feet, her lifeblood ebbing across the icy altar, slowly as if pulsing with her dying heart. Beat the magic circle fades. The sun's rays break through the dark clouds, and you know that you have succeeded. Wounded, tired but victorious, where the sun's rays hit, you see the ice dissipate, restoring the fertile valley your home to its once magnificent state. Momo said as she closed the DM screen. OMG, that was intense, Set said, sitting back. I thought we were dead for sure, Natsuo said, resting his head on the table. That is what happens when our druid and sorcerer decide to charge an elder white dragon head-on, Toya said, standing up to stretch. I knew our cleric would keep us alive, Set smirked. I had to use up most of my spells. Then we still had to fight the evil wizard, Izuku said. That was the greatest crit ever, Shoto, Fuyumi said, praising her little brother. Getting the killing blow like that was so cool. I don't think I missed once that entire fight, he said as they started to pick up the mess. Did you guys like the game? Momo said, fidgeting. IT was awesome, they all said, or some variation. I want to play again, Set said as her other friends nodded. I think I would like to try running a game that seemed fun, Natsuo added. Yes, Momo, that was great, and we could all tell how hard you worked, Toya said, patting Momo's head. Momo giggled and smiled as her friends praised her. All right, let's get everything cleaned up. Natsuo, you, Shoto, and Izuku gather all the trash. You and I will help get the table cleared and snacks put away. Fuyumi, I will wipe down the table and get the vacuum robot set to run, she said as the kids cleaned everything. Ray walked by the bustle of activity with a smile. All the kids had been huddled around the table, so excited to play their game. Momo had been nervous about introducing them to advanced monsters and adventures, but they all seemed excited to try, so Momo had been working very hard to ensure they enjoyed the game. The man at the game store seemed excited to help give her tips on the game. He even gave her a few miniatures for free. They had been playing alternating Saturdays at each other's house, and tonight it was the Todoroki turn again for the climatic final battle. They were spending the night tonight. With a chorus of goodnights and kisses from her children, they all headed off to bed. Ray sat reading for a bit before she was ready to sleep. As per her routine, she got out of bed and walked to the house. She had just walked into the study and froze as she noticed the door to the veranda was slightly ajar. She was suddenly struck from behind, and her world went unnaturally dark. Ray. She struggled back to consciousness. She was lying on her side, Her arms behind her back held there by suppression cuffs, and a gag prevented her from talking. She could smell accelerant all around the room. Good. You awake. A woman's voice rang out, dripping with venom and disgust. I want you awake. I want you to suffer and hear the sounds of your children screaming. The woman grabbed at her head, her dark eyes wide with madness. To think that he would have you as his queen. He deserves better. He blessed you with his seed and such failures you have made. But fret not. I will take the youngest. Maybe he can still be salvaged. She kicked Ray in the gut, driving the air out of her. Then, from the ashes of your demise, he will be lifted and surpass that buffoon. He will make me his queen and ravish me over and over again. Ray watched as this mad woman rubbed her thighs together in excitement. The woman then grabbed Ray roughly by the face. The things he does to me. He fucks me in ways he has never fucked you. He loves me. Do you understand he loves me? I worship how he should be worshipped, and after tonight, he will grant me the honor of bearing him another child, and I will bear him more and more. The woman was nearly shrieking. His will be mine. He will praise me and shower me with his love. She slapped Ray, then started punching her. I want you blood, she screamed. A knife flashed in her hand. Ray tried to scramble away in horror as the knife came down towards her. Suddenly, the woman was on her back, and Izuku was trying to pull Ray away. No, you will not get away from me, the madwoman screamed. Ray was in the hallway away from the madwoman as the boy desperately pulled her. Help! Help! Toi! Fuyumi, help! He screamed. Toya stirred as he heard screaming. Fuyumi was up and running down the hall, Momo, and Set right behind her. She saw Izuku down the hall, trying to drag her mother, who was cuffed and gagged. The girls ran to Ray. Fuyumi tried to get her mother to her feet as the girls asked what was happening. Suddenly, red lights filled the home as the emergency shutters closed, and an inferno erupted from the study. Everybody was up now. Momo and Set screamed as the flames raced toward them. Fuyumi stepped in front and pushed her Quirk out in a desperate attempt to save them. Fuyumi was on her back, staring at the ceiling. Momo and Set were behind her, and Ray was beside them. Izuku looked to be covered in frost as he stared at Ray. I'm sorry, he managed as the flames raced through the house. A wall of ice appeared in the hallway as Shoto approached the corner with Toya on his heels. Natsuko came from the other direction. Everything is on fire, he shouted. Fuyumi ungagged her mother. Shoto, warm up Izuku quickly. So please run to my room and get the small keys from inside my bedside table. Hurry. Momo, can you make any masks for the smoke? Momo nodded and tried to concentrate. She began to shake as she was so scared. Fuyumi grabbed her hands. It's okay, Momo. You can do this. I know you can. Momo bit her lip and squeezed Fuyumi's hands tightly. Soon, some essential breathing masks popped out of the girl's body. We need to get to the dojo, Ray shouted. Shoto keeps making ice in the hallway to slow down the fire. Fuyumi and Natsuo helped them out. Tuya, when the fire breaks through, use your fire to push it back. Set came running back and unlocked Ray's cuffs. They ran for the dojo. The heat was intense. They were almost entrapped when fire came rushing at them from two sides, but Ray and Shoto erected barriers to save them. Once in the dojo, Ray moved and opened the hidden panel to the panic room. As she did, a massive ball of fire exploded. The room exploded in fire, and hidden explosives began to trigger. Ray had thrown her arms up to protect her face from the explosion. She could feel the sizzle of pain on her skin, and she felt something cold holding onto her leg. She looked down, and there was Izuku nearly covered in a frost. Hurry, I can't hold it much longer, Izuku said, his eyes shut tight. The entire room was on fire, or there was no way out. Ray looked around. They were all about to die. She pulled on her quirk, reaching as deep as she could. Try to hold on as long as possible, Izuku, she said. Trying it hurts. Ray built up as much ice as her body could handle, and then built some more. Sorry, she heard Izuku mutter. With a final push, she exploded her dome of ice as time reasserted. The intense heat met a wall of cold, and everything went dark. Momo and Set came through with Fuyumi and Natsuo on top of them unconscious. As they looked around, they saw Tuya over Shoto in a similar position, both of them unconscious as well. Ray lay on the ground, struggling to get to her knees. Her white hair was now a stark white that seemed almost to glow. The tips of her hair were now an ice blue, and her skin was a pale alabaster. Near her lay Izuku. He was convulsing. Momo and Set scrambled free and ran to him, rolling him on his side. Momo made a blanket and put it over him as he was so cold. The sounds of emergency vehicles could be heard in the distance. Around them was complete devastation as the entire house had been destroyed. Rei struggled to her feet, making her way to her children. They began to stir at her touch, and with a gentle smile, the strain caught her, and Rei fell to the ground. Tuya struggled to his feet, as did his siblings. Ino, you are all supposed to be dead, a voice screamed. They turned and saw a mad woman stumbling towards them, blood running down her face and arms. No, you need to die so my king can have a queen worthy of him. Suddenly, fire flew from her palms in a wild attack. Tuya reacted. His attack was more concentrated as he cut through hers, knocking her to the ground. Shoto slapped the ground. His eyes staggered out, trapping the woman's legs. The mad woman shrieked like a banshee, and fire began to form on her hands again. Natsuo ran forward and just punched her in the face. "Shut the fuck up," he shouted down at her. He turned and looked at his family. "What? I am way too tired to do some Quirk battle bullshit." Fuyumi laughed as Shoto stumbled to Izuku and tried to call up what fire he could to warm his friend. "Inko. Persephone. So, did you try that coffee shop I recommended?" Rip Van Winkle. "I did. The coffee is good, and the egg sandwich is fantastic." Persephone. "Sometimes, after I get off shift, that is the only thing that keeps me going. I don't know how they do it, but it is so good." Rip Van Winkle. "I try to make it at home, and not even close." Persephone. "I know I did the same thing and am a decent cook." Rip Van Winkle. "Really, who said?" J. Persephone. "People, are you sassing me, Mr.?" Rip Van Winkle. "I would never." Persephone. "Maybe I could cook for you sometime." Rip Van Winkle. "Emergency, I have to go." Inko sat back, smooth eyeing Ko, real smooth. She thought, "I have no idea who this person is or what they do for a living, and I am offering to cook for them. What is wrong with me? Lonely check. The only person I have talked to since I divorced the opposite sex on any regular basis. Check. Tad horny. Double check." Inko's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and froze when she saw the police header at the top. Hospital. In a way, Inko said it was her hospital that she was racing to. It was close to her home. There had been some attack at the Todoroki house. There were injuries, and her son was being rushed to the emergency. Inko squealed to a stop in her reserved parking and ran into the hospital, making a beeline for the emergency ward. When she ran, she looked at the room screen, saw Izuku's name, and ran to the window. She saw the doctors at work. They seemed to be working feverishly on raising his body temperature. "Mrs. Midoriya," a voice called to her. She turned and saw Tuya standing there. He had bandages on his arms and cheek. Her immediate response was to demand to know what happened, but she took a deep breath. "Are you all right?" she said. He nodded. "Are any of your siblings or mother seriously hurt?" "My little brothers and sister are all right. Minor injuries like myself. My mother is being examined." Tuya responded as calmly as he could. "We don't know what happened. We had just gone to bed, and then the alarms went off, and emergency shutters activated. Everything was on fire, and we saw Izuku dragging my mom, and Inko saw the fear in his eyes. He had been trying to be strong. Inko just pulled him into a hug. He tried to resist, but no one could resist Inko's hugs. "It's okay, you can let it. They aren't here," she whispered. Tuya cried there in her arms. It was the first time, but wouldn't be the last time. He would go to her when he needed someone he could be vulnerable with. Once he calmed himself. "Sorry, Mrs. Midoriya." "Sush now," Inko said. "Tuya, you are just a kid. Even when you get older, never forget that sometimes you must let it go. You can't keep those emotions bottled in. I understand you want to be strong for the little ones, but when you need to, you come to me." She made sure he was looking her in the eyes. "You don't need to tell me what it is about. You come to me and let it out." He nodded. "Tell me about what happened to Izuku." "He used his quirk a lot," Tuya said, wiping at his eyes. "He kept using and using it. We had run to the dojo. There was a panic room, but when Mom opened the door, everything exploded. The next thing we were all knocked down. Izuku was freezing over, and Mom had overused her quirk. It's okay, Inko said, squeezing his shoulder. Go check on your mom. I will get an update from the doctor. What room? 1804, he said as he moved off. Inko turned and knocked on the glass. The doctor turned and looked annoyed till he recognized who it was, and then he waved her in. Dr. Tanaka, how is he? She said as she entered. We have him sedated as we are working to raise his body temperature. The doctor responded. I would have guessed they pulled him out of a frozen lake. We need to bring his temperature up and hope we can save some of his extremities. Inko's eyes widened. I know, Inko. We are doing everything possible to raise his temperature safely and quickly. Can I talk to him? She said hesitantly. The doctor nodded. Inko leaned down, gently stroking his hair. I know you can hear me. Baby, you did so good, she whispered. I need you to speed up, though, just for me, just till I count to 10. She started to count, but nothing happened. Come on, baby, if you can do this. I will take you and all your friends to HeroCon. Now speed up for me. Okay, fine, VIP passes. 1, 2, 3, 4. She smiled as she saw his temperature start to rise. His eyes fluttered open for just a second. HeroCon, he whispered before he was pulled back to unconsciousness. She smirked and kissed his forehead. Endeavor. He emerged from the cave system under MTI Veo, where he had been for the last 5 days. He sighed as he wiped his brow, and an aide ran up, handing him water. Artificial. The initial system is natural, but everything afterward. The rest of the teams are seeing if they can find anything else there, but it doesn't look promising. SIR, a team member he didn't recognize came running up with a phone in hand, waving it wildly. What? Endeavor roared. Sir, it's a command, the aide replied calmly. There has been an incident. Endeavor looked at the phone. Endeavor's home destroyed in villain attack. Suspect apprehended at the scene. As he saw the suspect's picture, Endeavor went from shock to dread. No, he screamed mentally. He wanted to yell about him not being notified sooner, but something in the area had jammed the communications. They knew that going in. Rip Van Winkle. This woman was insane, certifiably insane. Not only was she screaming about her king coming to free her and reward her with his seed, she had attacked the bars when they didn't know who her king was right away. Once she calmed down, they understood that it was Endeavor. She spouted nonsense about being his lover and how she would provide him with other women. She went into graphic details about her fantasy life with the number 2 hero in the country. It was insanity. Rei Todoroki. Rei sat in the penthouse of their temporary home. She had sent the children to Inko as she had received a message from Kana that Endeavor was on his way. She took a deep breath as things were about to get even messier. She waited anxiously for his arrival, and he did not disappoint her when he landed on the balcony and threw the sliding door open. Where are the children? He yelled. He saw Rei standing in the kitchen and froze at her new appearance. It was similar to a fabled snow woman for different myths. They are with a friend, she replied calmly. I wonder how he will approach this, she thought. I thought it would be best for us to talk first, Enji. Your appearance? He said. Overuse of my quirk. Aside from some obvious physical changes, there have been some changes to my internal temperature as well, she said, her voice cool and calm. The children are physically uninjured aside from some scrapes and bruises. That is good to hear, he replied, moving towards her. I will not rest till I learn how this madwoman was able to infiltrate the grounds and the security system. Yes, this woman has been spewing quite the tales, Rei responded. But I already know how she could access the home and the security. She gained access through your phone when you were passed out at her house. You are mad, Enji replied. I have. Rei set a file folder on the counter. She pulled out a photo of Endeavor sprawled out in a bed with multiple women, including the woman who attacked them. I know about her and the kid, Rei said. I also know about Frost. Enji froze, his eyes narrowed. How? He growled. Because Enji, I am not stupid, nor will I continue and live this life. Rei replied. I want a divorce. We have a marriage contract, he replied. You do not have the funds to repay me should that contract be broken. I have evidence of your infidelity and fathering of children out of wedlock. As of right now, this attack and that mad woman's ravings are being treated like nothing more than that. Someone will track down her son, who her sister is looking after, and his red hair will be noticed. Ray felt herself soften. Inji, she said sympathetically, which caught him off guard. Once upon a time, there was a hope that I would love you, but that is long gone. You do not love me. You only care about this obsession with surpassing all might. I don't want to take all this public, mainly for the children ours and those women. This obsession has consumed you and turned you into someone pretending to be a hero at times. And if I refuse? What do you think happens? She sighed. It all goes public. People start digging. You expect me to believe your hands are immaculate? He said. No, I never said they were, but I will tell you no man has touched me. His eyebrow raised. Inji, grant me a divorce. Try and salvage your relationship with all your children and let go of this obsession. I do not want to drag all this out, but I will. The Quirk marriage, the infidelity, all of it. I know there are more women out there, and you know they will come forward for their moments of fame. You expect me just to let Shoto go, he said. I will not just let him walk away from his destiny. That should tell you everything, Inji. Her sympathy faded. Nothing about Tuya, Fuyumi, Natsuo, just Shoto. This isn't a negotiation. I am not trading any of them for this. Either you agree, or we go to court. I will take whatever job I need to do to pay off the debt. I will go after you for everything. Every detail will be made public. I will do so and hold my head high. Will you recover once this is all made public? The more you push, the farther they are going to pull away. Shoto will be a hero for his reasons and his dreams, not yours. If you wish to participate, I suggest you work for it. Now get out. I expect your answer in the morning. Inji wanted to roar. He tried to scream. Turning, he left. He wasn't about to let his children leave. He needed counsel, so he made a call. He called the one person who wouldn't lie to him. Hello, Inji, a chipper voice answered. Nizu, I need to talk, he responded, his voice gruff. You made things abundantly clear last time we spoke that you wanted nothing to do with me. Nizu responded with that same infuriating tone. Now, after all this time, you call in the middle of the night and want my counsel. I need honesty, and I know you will do that. Inji paused. Please. Come to my home, Nizu responded. I trust you remember where it is. Nizu. Nizu was unique in many ways. He was what could be called a chimera. He was an amalgamation of a few different animals due to being experimented on. A dog, bear, mouse, and who knew what else. No one knew his original species, but he was also the sporadic case of an animal with a quirk. After a career in heroics, he parlayed that into other careers. He then got himself installed as the president of the UA. He loved what he did, molding and shaping young minds who would go forth and shape the world. To him, each student was just as important as the next. If they passed through those gates, then they mattered. He would do his best to put them in the best position to succeed. He sat on his balcony, a lovely tea in hand, as he relaxed, enjoying a fine cigar. It wasn't long till Endeavor arrived. Enji Todoroki, an alumnus of the UA, had spent much time with the boy and the man. They had been close, nearly a father and son relationship, nearly. Endeavor, Nizu said, pointing to a chair. What is it I can help you with? Ray has asked for a divorce, he said, still standing. Well, then, I can assume that you have violated your marriage contract in such a way that she feels that she can leverage that to pursue her own life. Nizu took a puff off his cigar. I am guessing then the attack on your home is from a lover of yours that their obsession with you led them down this path. Nizu paused. There must be others, and she has proof. Endeavor just nodded. Well, quite the pickle you have found yourself in. I warned you that when you decided to arrange a Quirk marriage, it had a chance of working out if you could find love. But I highly doubt you even tried, and instead just used her as a commodity. Your constant pushing towards a child with a balance of your two quirks, probably a dismissal of the others, killed any chance of that happening. Well then, good for her. What? Endeavor roared. You are getting what you deserve, Inji, Nizu replied calmly. I told you and warned you that your obsession with All Might would destroy you. That purchasing a woman to bear your children in the hopes of a quirk was wrong, mean, and borderline villainous. You told me you knew what was best and never to talk to you again. Nizu puffed on his cigar some more. You made your bed, and it has come time to lay in it. You have had opportunities to see what was coming down the road, but in your hubris, you ignored that over your desire. I didn't bring you into my home all those years ago in the hopes that your quirk would lead you to some great status. I brought you into my home because you needed it as a person, but this stupid obsession too blinds you. How is it dumb to want to surpass that idiot? Did you not tell us to strive to be the best? Endeavor replied. But you are not going to be the one to do it, are you? Nizu said calmly. The hope is that your son will do so in about 20 years. Then he would have passed a veteran of 60 years in the hero business. Nizu held the cigar in his mouth and slowly clapped his hands. Congratulations. Enji's fire erupted briefly in anger at being mocked. I will not be mocked, Nizu. Then don't do things that will cause me to do so, he replied with a smirk. Yes, your legacy will live on through your children, but their heights will not be accredited to you, especially when they tell of how much they despise you. It will be they achieved these heights despite you. Nizu set his cigar down. If all this becomes public, it will tarnish you and them as well. You can survive a divorce, it happens. The infidelity, the quirk marriage, and Lord knows what else is a different story. Children strive to see the good in their parents, even when it is false. There still is a good person in there, Enji. The question is, can you be that person who they see and who I have always seen? Enji took a seat. So just give her what she wants. Has she offered to keep your secrets? Enji nodded. Then give her what she wants and accept the responsibility for any other mistakes you have out there. You have at least one child I know of from that woman's ramblings, and you know what it is like to grow up despising a father, especially one who shows others the affection they crave. You have wrought this ruin upon yourself. If you are lucky, you may be able to spend the rest of your life ensuring that your ruin is not those who had nothing to do with it. Your children asked not of you or your obsession. Take that off them. Take your drive, take your pride, and put that to being a father and not a sperm donor. Enji sat back, lost in thought. Any idiot with a penis can be a sperm donor. But it takes a real man to be a father, Nizu finished. What if it is all too late? Enji said as he looked up at the sky. Then you have the rest of your life to prove it is not. Time. A precious thing, constantly flowing and moving despite our best efforts. When Izuku Midoriya awoke, time had moved on for the 3 days he slept. Questions had to be answered, and he did his best to do so. But the first thing he noticed was that the number in the corner of his vision had changed from 108 to 106. He didn't understand what it meant, why the number had gotten smaller. Chapter 7 Reveals. In breaking news, the stress from the villain's attack on his home appears to have separated Endeavor Enji Todoroki and his wife, Rei Todoroki. The filing lists irreconcilable differences for a reason. Still, with this coming nearly 6 months since the attack, one can only assume that this has something to do with the assault, where a crazed stalker attacked his wife, their children, and some of their schoolmates who were over for a sleepover. The official release from Endeavor's agency confirms the filing, stating that this is a private matter and the family is asking for their privacy to be respected. When the number 2 hero was asked for a comment at a news conference, he walked off stage instead of answering. This is not the only turmoil at the Endeavor agency, where longtime sidekick Inferno recently left, opening her agency. She stated it was time for her to grow and step out on her own. The shocking attack indeed sent shockwaves through the hero community, leading to many pro-heroes increasing security at their residences, with some moving to a new location. A law was recently passed making it illegal for any photos to be taken of a pro-hero entering or leaving their residence, or for images to be published showing any child of a pro-hero without consent of the parents. In other news, All Might has once again done the impossible. He stopped a tsunami and made a young girl's dreams come true when he stopped by her bake sale. We will now go to our field correspondent, Aiko Osa, with the report. Tuya. He sat staring at the book in his hands, his gaze shifting from it to Momo, who was beginning to fidget. Momo looked at her big sister, Fuyumi. Did I mess up? No, Momo, the girl said with a smile. Tuya, say something. Thank you, Momo, he said quietly. How did you know I was looking for it? And how did you find it? I overheard you and Natsuo talking about it last time we were over, Momo responded. You mentioned how hard it was to find, especially a translated copy, so I reached out to our book dealer and asked them to find me a copy. You have a book dealer? Fuyumi said, surprised. Doesn't everyone? Momo said, confused. I honestly wondered why you hadn't called yours. Momo, how many dealers do you have? Tuya said, looking at the girl in amusement. Well, there is Kiki for tea, Pierre for wine, and Delilah for flowers. Fuyumi and Tuya sat there in shock as she continued for 5 more minutes. Inko and Ray. How are you doing? Inko asked as she pulled out the pot for dinner. Good, Ray said with a smile. I can breathe and dance again. It is just terrifying and the best thing ever. Inko laughed as Ray nodded. I can tell you and the kids are so much more at ease. There isn't this cloud hanging over you. Has he reached out at all to the kids, I mean? It is complicated. Right now, they need their space from him, Ray said, chopping vegetables. He has to earn their trust back if he even can. And how are they reacting to Kana? Inko asked as the spices floated from the cabinet. Well, Ray smiled. She makes me happy. It was a bit of a shock when I introduced her. Flashback. The Todoroki children were all sitting in the living room when their mother entered with a strange woman beside her. The woman is tall and has a curvy body. Her long hair is indigo-colored with scattered pink streaks and is usually tied in a ponytail with 2 full shoulder-length strands of hair framing her face. She has purple eyes with a mauve shade and dark blue angled eyebrows. Secrets and lies have been at the center of this family for too long, Ray said. I have not been without my sins. This woman by my side has been a friend and was my source of hope for a long time. I contacted her because I needed a friend, something you know about now. Her children smiled, thinking of Izuku, Momo, and Set. But in the course of that, we became more than friends. I fell in love. Her children all looked a bit surprised. She helped give me the courage to decide that I needed for not only my sake, but all of yours, that we needed to get away from your father. Our marriage was unhealthy, as was what he had done and was doing to all of you. She was helping me figure all that out when that mad woman attacked us. Ray reached out and took Kana's hand. Does she make you happy? Fuyumi said, breaking the silence. Very much so, Fuyumi, and most importantly, she makes me feel safe, Ray responded, squeezing Kana's hand. Well, she can't be much worse than Endeavor, Natuso said, smiling. That wouldn't be a high bar to cross, Tuya said, getting to his feet. As long as you are happy, Mom. They looked at Shoto, who seemed confused. I don't get it, he shrugged. Can my friends still come over any time? Ray smiled and nodded. Okay. Okay then. Children, this is Kana Tsutsumi, otherwise known as Lady Nagant, Ray said, kissing Kana's cheek. Kana blushed some. She was incredibly nervous about being introduced to the children. Still, she understood that for her and Ray to continue having a proper relationship, it was a necessary step, and not having to sneak into the home would be a welcome change. She stepped forward and bowed. It is wonderful to meet all of you. I look forward to getting to know you all better, and if you need anything, please do not hesitate to ask. Flashback end. So the kids are adjusting to her being around. Ray couldn't stop smiling. The kids are happy, and I am also. How is Izuku? Have they discovered what those numbers are? Not yet. They have been running tests for the past 5 months, Inko sighed. Okay, I want to know how you went on a date with Rip Van Winkle from your online chat, but did not go together or meet? Ray asked. Inko blushed. We went on a walking tour. I went to different spots in the city that I liked and left him messages to hear what I thought about them and why I liked them. Then he went and responded by sending me messages. Okay, kind of cute, but why did you not go together? Well, we don't know each other's name, or even what the other person looks like, what we do for a living. We didn't know what each other's voice sounded like till we did the tour. Inko blushed. It is kind of stupid, isn't it? It is odd, but I don't know. It is romantic in a way, but you may be being catfished, you know that. Ray responded. All I know is he is male. Well, he presents that way. He has a rough voice. It is kind of sexy. Inko continued to blush. I know he has a couple of friends that he has had since school. He works nights, but he has this dry sense of humor that I like, kind of sarcastic and playful. Are you going to meet? Ray said, adding the vegetable to the soup pot. I am supposed to meet him at HeroCon next week when I take the kids, Inko smiled. Ichika will be with me, so I won't be alone, and we are supposed to meet Ashai there as well. It is a shame you can't come. I don't want to answer all the questions. Besides a day alone with Kana, I am sure we will find a way to pass the time. Ray smiled wickedly, causing Inko to laugh. Has Ichika said anything about how his treatment is going? They think they caught it early enough, so they are fairly confident they can send it into remission again, Inko sighed. But it never fully leaves, and according to what Ichika said is that every time he gets worse, it is only a matter of time before. That has to be horrible. They love each other so much, and the girls will be devastated. Ray sighed. Hannah, being older, seems to understand it better, but Set. Set was reflective, and as she set her game aside, she could not concentrate. She instead could only focus on the machines and their steady beep as her father sat in his chair receiving treatment. He had fallen asleep about an hour ago. Her mom and sister had left to grab a bite, leaving her to sit with him. She didn't understand everything happening, but often heard the word hopeful. Her dad had been sick as long as she could remember, but last month, he got worse. One night, she crept into the hallway and heard her parents talking about how it had returned. How his sickness had returned, but she heard that word that night, and the doctors were hopeful. Set laid her head gently on the back of his hand, looking up at him while he slept. Set closed her eyes. Please don't go. Daddy, she whispered. I am not ready for you to leave. Mirai Zayden. You did wonderful, Izuku, Aishuru said over the intercom. How are you feeling? Cold, he responded, his teeth chattering some. Okay, Izuku, let's try speeding up, Mr. Richado said. It should help you with the cold. Izuku nodded, zipping around the room a few times. Better. Izuku nodded. Okay, I want you to freeze time again and try to move the objects to opposite pedestals. Izuku sat in the recovery room, drinking a cup of tea as he answered more questions from the research committee. Has the number changed anymore? Mr. Richado said. No, it still says 106, Izuku responded. Do we know what it means yet? We have been running tests for a while now. Not yet, Izuku. That is why we are doing these tests, he said with a smile. What I want you to do now is try to stop everything around you, but speed yourself up. Doing so will regulate your body temperature. We will go for 6 minutes. Izuku nodded as he got to his feet and walked back into the testing center. What do you think is happening? Isuru asked. According to the readings, his body is slowed on a cellular level when he stops time. That is what causes the freezing over, Rito replied. And then when he accelerates himself, his is accelerating his cells, thus creating heat, Isuru said. Looking at the data, Rito nodded. And the number? I'm not sure it has an obvious correlation with his quirk. I have a theory I want to test, but it will have to wait till the number drops again. Rito turned his attention to the testing area. Izuku was standing one moment. The next, he was sitting on the ground panting, cold but not freezing. The boy smiled and gave a thumbs up. Izuku stood in the room next to Mr. Richado. I don't know if I can do this. I barely remember doing it. Well, just do your best, Mr. Richado said, patting his back. Izuku took a deep breath and took Mr. Richado's hand. When he activated his quirk, he felt the chill crashing down on him hard. He stumbled, but he sped himself up like he had been practicing. He pushed the chill away from Mr. Richado. Izuku, this is amazing. Can't hold it. Izuku gasped as his quirk shut down, and Izuku's world went dark. When he awoke, he slowly sat up. I hope I haven't been asleep for 3 days again. No, only a few hours, Isuru said. Has there been any change? Yes, it says 105, Izuku said hopefully. Does that mean we can stop all the testing now? Yes, Izuku. You can be a child again. Yay! Izuku yelled as he ran out of the room. Hiro-kan. Rip Van Winkle, aka Eraserhead, and Shota Aizawa were unceremoniously nervous. Of course, this was the source of endless amusement for his two best friends, Hisashi Yamada, present Mike, and Namuri Kiyama, aka Midnight. Shota is a tall, slender man with pale skin and shoulder-length black hair that is often messy and partially covers his face. His eyes are half-opened and black, and he is often recognized for his worn-out appearance, looking fatigued most of the time. His facial hair is usually stubbly and unkempt, and his eyes appear tired and flat, except in combat. He wears a baggy black outfit with a long-sleeved shirt and matching pants tucked into his boots. He also always wears a utility belt and his signature wrap scarf, which he uses to hide a pair of bright yellow goggles that he wears during battles. But today, his hair was combed and styled, and while his eyes still gave him a sleepy appearance, he was wide awake and did not present as weary or tired. Annoyed, but that was directed at his friends and slightly at his situation. Freshly shaven, not baggy clothing, his capture scarf was not safely wrapped around his neck to provide comfort and security. He didn't even have his utility belt. He felt naked, laid bare for the world to see. Instead, he wore a nice pair of black jeans, a silvery gray button-down shirt, and black sneakers with white trim. "I don't think I can do this," he said, looking over the convention floor. "Wow, Zie, how can you not?" Mike said, slapping him on the back. "You get out there, Shota, or I will murder you myself." "Quit being such a coward," Namiri added. "You did the walking tour, went to restaurants, and ate things the other recommended. You even went to that classic film festival to see the movie she was gushing about." She smiled when he blushed. "We all get nervous. You can't chicken out now. She is here and heading to the meeting spot and wearing a daffodil in her hair, so you can recognize her." Shota sighed. "If you don't go out there, I will see if she likes girls." Namuri added when Shota glared at her. She smiled. "Then go, you idiot, and have a good time." Shota took a deep breath and stepped onto the convention floor, heading towards the main entrance. She was looking for a woman wearing a daffodil in her hair, standing by the entrance to the Eclipse VIP meet and greet. At least she had not chosen All Might, but then again, she had VIP tickets. Then he froze. It had to be her. She was short, about 5 feet 3 inches, and she was dressed in a dark green dress with a black lace overlay that ran down her arms and revealed her bust and hugged her curves. And she had curves. Her large green eyes were glancing this way and that, and her long green hair braided down her back with daffodils. "Beautiful," he whispered. He took a deep breath and walked over to her. Once he got close, she looked at him hesitantly. He said, "Persephone?" When she smiled at him, he felt his knees wobble slightly. "Rip Van Winkle?" He nodded. "It is so wonderful to meet you. Inko Midoriya, finally." "Shoto Aizawa," he replied, unsure whether to bow or shake hands. But when she stepped forward and hugged him, he was very pleased she made that decision. She jumped back and blushed. "I am so sorry," she stammered. "That was incredibly forward of me." "It was nice, though," he replied quickly. "I can't describe how happy I am to meet you finally." Inko was relieved that she hadn't just blown their first meeting, saying, "But I have to tell you that I have a son. I understand if that is too much for you since this is our first official meeting." "If you don't want me to meet him, I understand," he responded. "No, it isn't that. My son is very important to me as it should be. I just wanted to be forthcoming. We can talk a bit if you like. He and his friends are in line to meet Eclipse," she said, fidgeting with her hands. "I would like to do more than just talk to you for a few minutes after all this time." Shota's smile made her feel at ease. "If you are amenable, I would like to meet him and maybe enjoy the convention with you today." "I would like that very much," Inko smiled. "So, Shota, what do you do for a living?" "Well," he responded sheepishly, rubbing his head. "I am a pro hero myself." Results. Rito Richado, the head of Mirai Zayden, sat looking at all the data collected over the past 5 months on Izuku Midoriya. With the revelation of the number in the corner of his eye, and it changing after the night of the attack, the question became what it represented and what had caused it to change. Inko sat in the office nervous. Life had returned to normal since the attack, and the children were free to play and interact. Her home had become a de facto gathering spot after school for a bit, while Ray found a new home for her family. The location near the school, along with the increased security, found the kids heading there before they would head home. She had been a little upset that Izuku had kept the information about the number in the corner of his vision away from her. Still, she had to approach it carefully to not drive a wedge between them, but to express the importance of him telling her things, especially when it seemed to have something to do with his quirk. Now, she was meeting with Mr. Richado to hear the testing results. First, Ms. Midoriya, let me apologize for the time it took for us to figure out what the numbers your son could see meant, he began. But after the extensive testing and a thorough review of the results, I am here to tell you that you can breathe easy. He smiled, and Inko released the breath she didn't know she had been holding. So what is it? Inko said. It is a measure of the energy that Izuku's body has stored in regards to his quirk. Mr. Richado tapped a button on his desk. The lights in the office darkened, and a hollow sphere lit up, displaying a biometric reading of Izuku. You see, Izuku's quirk is exactly what we have always believed. He can stop time. Now there have been questions. Is this in a limited area? What is the meaning of the frost? And recently, what does this counter that he sees represent and measure? The answer is, no, when he stops time, time for him is stopped. He is in his pocket that exists outside of time. By stopping time, he is slowing his cell's natural vibrations, which is the cause of him frosting over. He is freezing his body in time when he stops it. And the heat is a result of him speeding up the cellular vibration. He isn't moving at super speed, but his body is moving through time faster than us, Inko said, looking at the data. You are correct. You are very astute, Ms. Midoriya, he said, smiling. Now, what some others will refer to as his quirk factor is extremely high. Another way of looking at it is that his high quirk factor is the measure of energy his body has stored up, allowing him to stop time. This energy accumulates over time and is stored within his cells, the very cells he slows and accelerates to use his quirk. Does that mean he will eventually be unable to use his quirk once it reaches zero? Inko said, concerned. The thought that he would lose his quirk at some point was troublesome, to say the least. She knew it devastated him if it prevented him from being a hero. If it reaches zero, Mr. Richado replied, raising a finger. You see, his body is still accumulating this energy, but it is slowed now that he has access to his quirk. Constant use of his quirk will make his stored energy deplete, but rest and not using his quirk will allow it to rebuild. I believe that what is needed is to find a balance to keep his number from depleting too quickly. Constant activation of his quirk will cause him to burn through his stored energy, but if he limits his use, it will allow a portion of the energy he has spent to be reclaimed, Inko said. That is correct. He will be fine if he doesn't have to defend himself or his friends from such a terrible incident as 6 months ago. According to our data, as long as he keeps his time stoppage to under 1 hour per day, his energy levels should be able to replenish themselves just fine. Any more will require him to rest longer to keep his levels high if the dip. Then he knows he needs to take more time to rest. Mr. Richado turned off the hollow sphere. And this is only going to get stronger. The older he gets and the more control he can lean, the more he will be able to increase the amount of time he can keep stopped for the day. Thank you, Mr. Richado. Inko bowed as the lights came up. Knowing what that number represents, and that he can still pursue his dream with proper training and guidance takes a load off my mind. She rose from her seat. Thank you again. There is no need to thank me, Ms. Midoriya. This is why he is here at Mirai Zayden. It is our pleasure to help him and all our students. He bowed as she left the room. Once she was gone, the hollow sphere lit up again when Ms. Arisher entered. I assume she bought what you told her? Of course, she has no reason to doubt us. And as a mother, she is more willing to accept the situation we presented, Rito responded as the projected data changed. According to the cellular degradation data, he is burning through his life. That number is how old he will be when he dies when he stops or accelerates the time he borrows against his lifespan, Isuru replied. Shouldn't you warn him? No. Doing so will cause his mother to attempt to shut him off from using it all. That will remove our ability to study him. These tachyons he produces when he stops time can be what allows us to harness the ability to time travel for ourselves. The only way we can figure out how to produce them is by studying Izuku Midoriya. And if we figure out a way to synthetically produce them, we will be able to help continue to fuel him, he smiled. Thus allowing further study, Isuru replied with a smile. I am not a complete monster, my dear, but sometimes sacrifices need to be made in the name of science. He rose from his chair. Now, how did your meeting go with All for One? Chapter 8. Time marches on. Chapter text. Time is unrestricted. It flows or marches on without anyone's consent or permission. It doesn't ask, nor would it care for anyone else's response but its own. If asked why it flows at the same pace, neither slowing nor accelerating, it would say, "This is the only way I know how to do it." To children, a year is a lifetime, 2 years is an eternity, and 3 years is an abstract concept that their minds cannot comprehend. But it was where they were a year older. Now 8 years old, they moved from kindergarten, past the unknown of the first grade, to the maturity of second grade. Thankfully, they were all in the same class. Set, Momo, Shoto, and Izuku. Over a year removed from the incident at the Todoroki home, living in a new house with their mom and Kana, and a year of adjustment to new ways to train Tuya thanks to that book Momo had found for him. It was a prospect of build and release in quick actions. Tuya couldn't hold fire like most other fire users. He needed to get it away from his body as quickly as possible. Most fire users would build up their attacks to increase firepower, and Tuya had to build and release them as soon as possible. It seemed his body knew this before he did because one thing Tuya could do was build up his fire very quickly. His single purpose of copying his father led him to trouble and pain. Good job, Tuya. Now I want you to try and blast that target over there, and only that target, Inferno called out. Inferno has been a long-time sidekick of his father. She had been there practically since the beginning, but after the incident, she had left. She couldn't work for Endeavor any longer now that she was aware of the type of person he was, so she left the agency, citing a desire to strike out on her own. She was surprised when Tuya and Ray reached out to her, but when the situation was explained, she knew that saying no was not an option. Tuya was reading the book by Ignis every waking moment. It helped him get a firm grasp of the concepts. Ignis had fire resistance. His fire was so hot that it didn't matter. He had to learn how to use it without burning himself to death. Inferno couldn't hold her fire, but she was adept at forming and concentrating her blasts and walls. She had worked hard and was now happy to try to help Tuya do the same. She smiled, watching Tuya and his little brother Shoto sweating away, working on their quirks. Tuya had to work hard. He had 2 years to learn to control his quirk adequately enough to take the entrance exams for the UA. It would take all the boy had to do, but Inferno saw the determination to do it and not let his little brother down. Inferno hadn't seen the children much at social events for the agency or a gala or two, but they didn't smile. The only one would be Fuyumi. Now Inferno knew why. This was different. She would see them smiling when they accomplished something or came close to achieving something, encouraging each other every step of the way. She was impressed with Shoto's strength for his age. If the boy continues to train his fire and ice abilities, he will become a force to be reckoned with by the time he turns pro. Inferno stopped the training and sent the boys to shower before she exited to talk with Ray. "How are they doing?" Ray asked as she was kneeling in the garden planting flowers. "Tuya has a long road to get ready, but he is doing great. That book is helping him," Inferno replied, extending a hand to help Ray up. "Shoto, that kid has future top 3 written all over him. He is talented now that he is embracing his fire and has someone proper to train him." Ray removed an envelope from her apron. "Ray, I told you that you don't need to pay me," Inferno said, stepping back. "So to Fanny Ray raised an eyebrow. "I know that, but I also know how expensive it is to start an agency independently. Now take it." So to Fanny took the envelope and bowed. "Thank you, Ray." "You're welcome." Ray smiled before pulling the girl into a hug. "You stay safe out there. Soot, I am cheering for you." Soot smiled before heading out for her evening patrol. Change. Kana sat looking at the file on her desk, then the picture of her, Ray, and the kids in a pillow fort. She opened the file, trying for the 10th time to read it before she shut it and sat back in her chair, placing her arms over her head and face. She had responsibilities now. It wasn't about just her anymore. The way Ray looked at her before they fell asleep or the kids started talking and reacting to her was tugging at her soul. Tuya, Natsuo, and Shoto all wanted to be heroes, their last example. He was good as a hero, but the man was a piece of shit. She may not like Endeavor, but as a hero, she couldn't fault him. He worked hard and ensured he got the job done as safely as possible. Hard for a fire Quirk, but he had paved the way and became the benchmark. The man, well, he could go fuck himself. But now she was the hero in the house. She worked for the Hero Commission, which was nowhere near the rank that their father had achieved. She was barely ranked in the top 100, just as the commission wanted for her. Her assignments had started to shift over the last year, and it didn't bother her as much as it should. The targets were terrible, atrocious, and needed to be removed. Lady Nagant shot people, plain and simple. It was what she was good at, and what her Quirk did. But still, she wanted to be more. She knew that this kind of work would eventually take away her soul, and she had promised that to Ray, so it was no longer hers to give. She wanted to be an example for Ray's children and little friends. She could see them all going pro, maybe one day working with her, side by side. It wasn't about just her anymore. There were expectations on her shoulders. She had put them there herself and opened herself up to them. She had dreamed of the day when she and Ray would share a bed and wake up in each other's arms. But she hadn't considered what waking up to a house of children would do, how it reawakened that dream of being good, of being a hero. Kana sat at her desk, and instead of opening the file, she drafted her resignation letter, effective immediately. Izuku in change. Coming from the line after they met Eclipse, he was surprised to see his mom talking to someone. The two adults' conversation stopped as the group approached him, and Izuku stepped to the front. "Mom? Who is this?" he said. "Izuku, I would like you to meet Mr. Aizawa. He is a friend of mine," Inko said, smiling. Izuku raised an eyebrow questioningly. "How come I have never heard of him?" he probed. "He is a new friend," Inko answered. "I told him I was going to be here, and he was too, so we decided to meet." Izuku took his mom's hand, tugging her away from the group. "Mom, is this the online guy?" "How do you know about that?" Inko said, a bit flustered. "You don't always close your windows, and I have to use the computer sometimes," he replied. "Yes, Izuku, he is the online guy," Inko whispered. "I like him, and I think he likes me, so we might even date. Is that okay?" Inko watched as her son's face showed many emotions. He wanted his mom to be happy, but didn't want her hurt. "Okay, but I have to ask him a question." Inko wanted to smile at the determined look on her son's face, but she didn't want to make him feel bad because he was trying to protect her. She turned and beckoned Shota over, who was looking at the group of kids in silence, having instantly recognized the Todoroki children. Shota Aizawa walked over. "Izuku has a question for you." Shota raised an eyebrow and turned his attention to the earnest young man. "Do you give up?" Izuku said. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "What do you mean?" Shota asked. "Do you give up? When things get hard, do you give up and run away? 'Cause if you are, then you should go away right now because we don't need someone who gives up," he said as fiercely as he could. Inko was about to say something, but Shota gently touched her arm. "My dad gave up because he was a coward and weak. My mom is strong and doesn't need someone who gives up." Little tears formed at the corner of his eyes. "I don't want anyone who gives up around." "Does giving up make you weak?" Shota said as he crouched down to Izuku's eye level. Izuku nodded. "What if your mom and I decide that we don't like each other like that?" "Then that is failing and not giving up. It is different," Izuku said. Inko and Shota raised their eyebrows. It was an important distinction to make, especially for one so young. "What if we fail?" "Did you try your best?" Shota nodded. "It is okay to fail as long as you try your best, but if you give up because it got hard, go away." Shota then asked a crucial question. "What if they are weak, or not as strong as you?" "As long as they do their best, if they are weaker than me, I will protect them. Someone is always stronger." Izuku stopped and took a deep breath. "My dad gave up on us. He gave up on my mom and me. My mom will never give up on me and won't give up on her." "I understand now," Shota smiled. "I don't give up either, Izuku. I promise to work very hard to get to know your mother and you better. I think she is exceptional." "Okay." Izuku extended his pinky. "Pinky promise. If you pinky promise, it can't be broken." Shota smiled and was hooked, pinky, around Izuku. "I promise." As they walked back, Inko leaned over and apologized for her son's behavior. "I didn't realize how angry he was. Maybe some therapy would be good for him. It is only natural. I was initially concerned, but when he made the distinction, it alleviated that, Shota said. What is his quirk? He can stop time, Inko whispered. Shota's eyes went wide. Shota walked the convention floor with them till it was time to leave. He listened to the children talking about heroics and how excited they were to see all the heroes and collect their autographs. Thankfully, he was underground, and not many people knew about him or would recognize him out of his costume anyhow. He listened and talked with the others, recognizing them from when he had responded to the attack on their home and discerning their quirks. He was surprised to see the Todoroki children out and about without an army of bodyguards. Still, he did notice the two eldest keeping a tight eye on the group and that they were being followed by undercover security. He recognized one of them, so it put him at ease. When the day ended, he wished he could continue spending time with Inko. He was surprised when she reached out and hooked her pinky around his as they walked the floor. Her attentiveness to her children, him, and the area around her. He walked them to the valet and waited till their car arrived. Inko stepped in and kissed his cheek. Thank you for a wonderful day, Shota. I would like to do it again, Shota said, taking her hand. Maybe without the convention. I would like that. Would you care to exchange numbers? Inko said hesitantly. Yes, please. He pulled out his phone as they tapped them together. He smiled at her blush as she climbed into the car, and he stood at the curb watching them drive away. He could barely remember the last time he smiled this much. The memory brought pain to his heart as he remembered his lost friend. Maybe it was time for him to address that, he thought. He sighed when he turned and saw Midnight and Mike standing there with giant grins. He would typically greet that with a scowl, but instead, he walked over and placed his arms around their shoulders. Would you two care to grab a drink? Mike nearly fainted. We would love to, Shota, Midnight said with a smile. Endless march towards tomorrow. Momo was pacing the hospital floor as Set and Fuyumi tried to calm her down. Why was her little sister being so difficult? She should have arrived last month like she was supposed to, but she was now a month late. Xian was not cooperating with the schedule. The doors opened, and out walked her father with a huge smile. Momo, would you like to come meet your sister? At 8 years old, Momo became a big sister. Shoto watched as Tuya was accepted into the UA. Tuya celebrated with his family and his adopted little brothers and sisters as they had become. After the night of the attack, the little unit was completely inseparable. He was standing in the backyard as things were winding down, staring at his phone. It had been a few years, and aside from cards and presents on their birthdays and holidays, there had been no contact with their father. Their mother had put the entire family into therapy after the divorce as a way to help them heal. She knew that their lives wouldn't be magically fixed just because they were away from him. Are you going to call him? He turned and saw Fuyumi leaning against a pillar. I think we should call him just to laugh. Natsuo stepped out. Who are we going to laugh at? Shoto added, following his siblings outside. Endeavor, Tuya said. I have thought about it a few times, Fuyumi said, walking towards her brother. At first, it was just me wanting to try and make everyone happy around me, but the therapist told me I should hold off. I want to know if he has changed or if we don't exist anymore. He does send us cards, Shoto added. Surprisingly, he writes them himself, Natsuo said. I thought it was one of his secretaries, but I recognized that writing. Tuya nodded, shocked the hell out of me. It angers me that I still want to know if he is proud of me. After all the shit he did, all the bullshit he pulled. It's because we all wanted it deep down for so long, Fuyumi said, standing next to Tuya, and the Natsuo and Shoto came next to them. Now I still want it, but realize I don't need it. That is the truth. We don't need it, Natsuo said. We never did, but want and need are two different things. I want to know if he cares, Shoto said, looking at the ground, kicking at the grass. Well, there is only one way to find out the answer to all those questions, Tuya said, taking a deep breath. I was thinking if this phone call goes well, maybe lunch? I can commit to lunch, Natsuo smiled, putting his arm around Shoto. Fuyumi nodded. Tuya nodded and dialed the number he knew by heart. Enji was in the middle of a meeting when his phone rang. The room stopped as he looked at him with surprise. Excuse me, I have to take this call. The meeting was dismissed, Enji said, stepping on the balcony. Hello, Tuya. Is everything all right? Congratulations on passing the exam. Lunch sounds nice. Tell me the day, time, and location, and I will be there. Are your siblings coming? That is nice to hear. Oh, and Tuya, I am proud of you. Yes, good night. Enji stared at his phone before slipping it back into his pocket. It had been 2 years, and Nizu had been guiding him in handling the situation. Being advised that he had to sit back and wait was the most challenging advice he had to follow. Patience was not his strong suit. He was aware of their grades from the school and read a few reports the teachers had written. It stung how each report mentioned a marked improvement in their academic work, mood, and social behavior. It had been hard to stay away and not try to force anything. His son Shikanetsu, whose mother had attacked the house, was proving difficult, demanding that Enji name him his heir. Enji had talked about acknowledging him as his son, but he wasn't about to name the boy his heir. The child had been spoiled. Fortunately, his aunt had taken him in, as he refused to be with Enji without his conditions being met. Enji had a sexual relationship with the aunt, but she seemed more concerned with the money coming to her than anything else, though he was making sure that the boy's needs were being met. Tuya was struck dumb when he walked into class and saw Mr. Aizawa standing before the class as his homeroom teacher. At 9 years old, Setsuna became a big sister to a little boy, Hiro, named after her father. It was also at that time that her father got sick again. The doctors and her mother were apprehensive, but she saw her dad smile and tell them he would be okay. Set laid her head on his lap. How do you know? Because you haven't gotten married yet, he whispered as he ran his hands through her hair. Then I will never get married, Set whispered. Nonsense, I want you to get married. I need to know my girls are cared for, he said quietly. Izuku was adjusting to his mother dating Shota Aizawa. The underground hero erased her head. It was a slow process of him changing and opening up to the underground hero. His help seeing a counselor had eased the process. Shota was impressed, while Inko was a bit embarrassed at how protective Izuku was of her. But she understood that it was just that Izuku loved her so much, coupled with the sense of duty that she hadn't given up on him, that broke her heart. Izuku was scared of facing that again, of being abandoned because someone deemed him not worth working to be around or with. The emotional scar that he carried from his father walking out was hidden so well under the mask of his smile. It slowed down her and Shota's developing relationship as she wanted to protect her son, and the fact that Shota understood and supported her helped deepen their bond on an emotional level. One night after dinner, Inko washed the dishes while quietly listening to Izuku and Shota on the balcony. Aizawa. Izuku fidgeted in place, clearly nervous. Yes, Izuku. Shota turned towards Izuku, leaning on the rail. I am scared that if I let you in here, he tapped his chest, you will leave one day. Inko turned off the water to listen. I understand that, Shota said. Losing someone or being abandoned by someone leaves a hurt in your heart that never really goes away. Shota looked out over the balcony. When I was in school, I had a friend. He was my best friend. Like me and Set, and Momo, and Shoto? Izuku said. Kind of like that, but yes, Shota responded. We met in the UA. I was quiet and grumpy, but he wouldn't let me be that way. He just pulled me in and wouldn't let me go. Kind of like Setsuna when you are sad. Izuku smiled. During our internships, something happened, and he was taken away while on patrol. Oh no, Izuku said, his hands coming to his mouth, his brain thinking what it would be like if one of his friends were taken away. It hurt so badly. Shota turned and kneeled at Izuku's eyeline. The boy was surprised to see Aizawa's eyes wet. It hurt, and I was so angry. I was mad at the teachers, the pro he was interned with. I was even mad at my friend. I wondered if he took things more seriously, if the pro had done his job better, or why the teachers even let him go out there unprepared. Aizawa placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder. I carried it with me. Every day, I carried that pain and anger. But it wasn't right. It wasn't their fault, let alone my best friends. He didn't want to die. He had just as many hopes and dreams as everyone else. Your mom, and you helped me realize I have been carrying this. Izuku's eyes went wide. Izuku, I won't promise I will never leave you. Being a pro hero, just the way this world is, I cannot make that promise. He gently squeezed Izuku's shoulder. I think you and your mom are amazing, and I care for you both so much. I promise you this. I will never give up on either of you. I will always do everything I can to be there, come home, and support you both. The only way I won't be around is if I am taken away, but even then, I will be around watching and cheering you both on till I get to see you both again." Izuku's lip quivered. "Promise," as a tear rolled down his cheek. "I promise, Izuku." Aizawa held up his pinky. Izuku looked at the gesture, and hesitantly, he hooked his pinky with Aizawa's. Then, Izuku released and wrapped his arms around the boy, lightly stroking his head. After Izuku had gone to bed that night, Aizawa waited for Inko to return from the boys' room. Inko came around the corner and pulled him to her with her quirk. To his surprise, she kissed him deeply. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you, Inko," he said as she took his hand and led him down the hall to her room. Izuku woke to the smell of bacon and was surprised to see Shota cooking breakfast. He must have gotten off patrol early, Izuku thought. When Izuku turned 12, he proudly walked his mother down the aisle to be married. A year later, he, too, became a big brother to a little boy named Oboro. That was also the year that Izuku met All Might.